Right, this is going to be another episode of Thorin's Big Brains here, and I am joined by vENdetta, who obviously is a long-time Counter-Strike enthusiast, particularly came from Source. He's done quite a few events in, of course, someone's fucking literally calling me, literally right this second. Fucking hell, wait there a second. Someone like calling me on Telegram, like Temler or something, fucking right this second, like, because you know he does that thing where he's like an old school, he's like a boomer, he just calls you.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, no way. You can be doing anything. And I'm like, what the fuck? So anyway, I'll do that again, shall I? Well, let's keep it rolling. I did the intro. Okay. This is going to be an episode of Thorin's Big Brains. Obviously, I am joined by two guests on this one. I've got vENdetta here, who obviously you will, if you actually just saw the SBOO, Elisa SBOO Masters or whatever it, Masters SBOO, whichever one it was, the one in Finland that was just won by Furia. He was doing that one. He's done a bunch of CSGO events. And obviously he comes from Source. That's his specialty background. We've got Moses here, a little more. Obviously everyone knows him from all the events. Now he's a caster because he just turned coated on all the analyst desk and that. You know, as he's going to do. You know? Yeah, that's true. You know, you go wherever.
Also, like, you know, casters get to work half days. It's
I can't lie. That is the one thing I was always jealous of. It is true. That is the one thing.
What do you want me to do? It's simple math.
True.
Yeah, still get paid the same day rate.
Still
You
get
know,
paid the same.
So here's the thing. I thought for this episode, instead of just like typical talk show of like, oh, and so how's Ench doing? And should FaZe sign that player? Like, we'll actually do something a bit bigger picture. I thought what we could do is, since we, first of all, collectively, we cover all the history of Counter-Strike, and we really are from the old school. Like, we were doing stuff in the 2000s. We weren't the Johnny come latelys. Like, even at this point, even the CSGO veterans that have been around like 10 years, like they weren't back when we were. Some of them, some of these ones really were just kids watching the game. So I thought what we could do is we could tell some stories, we could talk about what the esports was back then, what we thought it would be, what it is now, and we'll mix in some of the stories. So I thought the witty way to say it would be like, say, an oral history of Counter-Strike, especially because since we're going to be talking about NA CSGO, it's an oral history because they did suck a lot of dick. Right? Here's the thing, was that's not even fair. There actually even were some really good teams from NA. Yeah. But you have to understand, one, you know when people go, oh, that's a bit low-hanging fruit. Mate, when you're collecting fruit, you start with the low-hanging ones, and then you just climb to the top of the tree and get the fucking apple. You get the bottom ones, and then you go up. So listen, there's one thing I'll never do in my career, mate, is leave some low-hanging fruit, the old juicy low-hanging fruit. Just leave that for someone else. I'll start with that, and then I'll set my game up later on. I'll do something good later in the episode, you know.
I would never expect you to skip the low-hanging fruit on your way up to the top of the tree.
Listen, I can't just fly to the top like a pelican was. That's such a ridiculous, an insane in-joke that you'd have to know E-League law to know, but we're not going to go into. Don't worry about. Well, maybe
I've actually looked for that clip.
It can't be found.
Been able to find it.
The problem is I don't remember what game it was, but I'll try and think one time because I actually also
2 seasons.
I did Google as well. I can't lie, but there's no clip for like Thorin, Pelican, or whatever. Like, essentially, it's just referencing a quite. It was essentially when we used to do E-League, and sometimes the game did end at 12:30 local time in Atlanta, and all you need to know is I was very tired. I think I even said, someone was like, what did you do? Bad joke. I was like, I'm very tired. I need to go to bed now. Like, it's over at that point, isn't it? What can I do?
That was one of the few moments, even with you, where I've just been speechless. Even Richard was speechless at the end of that. We just looked at each other
like, what am I going to do with that? I don't know, like, I haven't got anything for that. I haven't got any bird-related material.
Those are the good. Well, I mean, that's a good starting point. That is a point of history of CSGO broadcast, at the very least, was just like, cameras on, go. There was no show. There was nothing at these events. No. It was just literally lights are on, cameras are on, streams live. Just go. And it was the same way with the game back then too.
We'll bounce around on this. I will even say, by the way, if people don't know, this is how hilarious it is. You know what's mad? It doesn't even feel like I did E-League, Moses. That feels like a different lifetime and a different person.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing about it is, now when I look back, I actually didn't really sort of like appreciate it at the time. I was just rocking up like, oh, you Yanks, you've had to bring me in from Europe and I'm just getting all this money. I'm doing I'm basically, and I was my diva. But what I do forget that I actually do regret now in that sense is, like, dude, they were actually trying to make it like inside the NBA. So they were doing all production vENdetta. So as we're talking, you know, they're showing camera shots and play things. And because our style is coming from desks where it's just a static shot, and sometimes I might be doing like, you know, a sight gag or something. So the thing is, even though they're trying to be professional, if they throw up some graphic, like, because they don't tell us what they're going to do, because we were just like, I would get like really mad if they were doing that, like while I'm trying to do something, even though essentially that is like professional broadcasting. I would be like, oh, he's showing that fucking graph. And also they'd sort of be going, please talk about what's on the graphic. And I'd be like, I don't want to talk about this player though. Like, I don't really realise now that is mad that we actually got away with murder on that show, Moses. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the actual like TV broadcast, they really gave us a lot of fucking rope, didn't they? That was actually a fun show to watch. But I'm with you. I don't think I fully appreciated it in the moment at the time, like what it was. Even like the capabilities of being able to learn different parts of the broadcast or be involved in different areas of it. It was still so early on in esports that it just felt like the same, just for a different TO to a certain extent.
Right. I will say though, it's probably one of the reasons why the E-League broadcast felt special though, because they didn't completely harness you.
Yes.
Like, again, if you go to any traditional or any TO that hires just the guy who did Eurovision for whatever TV company, etc., and he's in charge of everything and how the rundown goes and has basically like zero creative impact or input from any of the talent, it's usually like a pretty boring broadcast. And it's usually not something that's going to be memorable. You're not going to have any sort of leeway because they're going to want you to talk about the graphic when they pull up the graphic. And they decide when they pull up the graphic. It's not like they're sitting there listening to what you're talking about then actually like playing along with it. So I think, again, the fact that it feels like any other TO, but obviously done at a higher level, I think that's like the ultimate way you can do esports.
Well, those were like I've never felt like no one's ever come to me on a broadcast and like really like harnessed me in the sense of don't do this, don't tell jokes, don't do this, like, you know, make sure you're on point with this. It's more the esports TOs have the run or the production of esports events have the rundown so segmented that it's like you actually don't have any room to just riff and go. Like E-League was kind of like, we have 10 minutes between matches, go. And for the most part, they would follow along with our conversation with their graphics. But esports TOs are like, we only have these 6 graphics, so it's going to go here, 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 and then game. So even if you have like a funny joke, or even if you have something prepared, or even if you want to take it in a different direction, you're kind of harnessed in that way where like the guardrails are so pulled in close that you can't really do much, which is very weird because that's not how esports and gaming content is even structured in anywhere else except for esports. And it's been one of the biggest areas of pushback we've had over the years is going to them and being like, guys, like you're hiring me for what I can do, and then you're giving me this rundown like a talking monkey. You could get someone up here, and as long as they know how to read names, like they can just read off the graphics and pull you through this. And I don't know when that switch happened with esports, because it happened at a certain point. It must have been like 2017, 2018 is really like 2018 probably when the shift really came in. But you know, it was just like one day you just want to do a show and it was like, nope, this is exactly what you're talking about. Start to finish, game's going live. You have 5 minutes. Each person gets 1 sentence, go. And
I will say, I actually always wondered, because to be fair, they never even sat down and had any of these, like we did production meetings per day, but like the joke about that was, the reason I used to be so tilted is we were barely ever actually having input. It was more like, you know, would you want to interview later, or like most of it was just for camera people and the actual real production stuff. But like we never even had a discussion about the tone with, like, there was no director came to us and said, I want it to be there. They kind of just let us do our own thing, which is crazy when you consider we were on like actual like fucking prime time or whatever. Well, it was actually the death slot, but we were on like a real fucking cable channel. So I always wondered if, like, one, there was like the setup that like the Shaq incident I had was essentially a, sort of the trial for E-League. It was that like CES thing where it was the road to there. I know they actually really did like that, the production people. So I think they did get the vibe of like, oh, it's a bit like Inside. You just
Shaq didn't.
He didn't, but you know. But here's the thing though, what people don't know is if you ever watch him now on Inside the NBA, vENdetta knows he's really good now actually. Like his analysis is good, and 2, he can take a joke. Back then though, dude, this is before he'd actually been on very much. Like he had a very thin skin back then. So by the way, spoiler guys, even though he laughs it off like, what about David Beckham? He's fucking seething, guys. Like, you don't know, like, for real, when he says that, I think he is just verbalizing what he actually did want to do, which is just come and beat the fuck out of me. Like, get up, like, and by the way, spoiler, I'm not going to try and be tough guy. Shaq would actually beat the fuck out of me. Like, you know, his legs the size of me. Like, I couldn't do anything, could I?
He is a huge human being. Holy hell.
But as I always said, listen, I've always thought he was a great player, but more of a Kobe fan really on that whole beef, you know. So
I didn't know that about you, Duncan.
Yeah, no, that's been a well-guarded secret.
So anyway,
I hope you see 4 Kobe retweets every day of my life on my timeline.
And there was that major where I did just turn up with a Kobe jersey on. There was that one too. Did that too.
And also 2015, right?
You what?
It was 2015, the Kobe jersey.
2013 as well.
I did the first one, and then I did the one for Cluj the Pokerers. Was it Cluj? Yeah, I think I did Cluj as like a throwback or something. And I think also I think at PGL I did it as like a last major ever one, because I did know that was going to be the last major ever, unlike other people. Although then again, Is it the last major? Oh no, I don't know. Actually, I'm actually making that sound better than it is. I have no information whatsoever. I'm not in contact with anyone. And also, I'll actually throw this out there. Here's bits that might interest people. I actually have lived an insanely charmed life doing broadcast. If people don't know, because I never consider myself broadcast talent because I came from being a journalist and a content creator. It was always my grind and my hustle. And so, what people don't know is I was never the guy. I don't think maybe I've like 3 times ever messaged the TO like, "Hey, do you need me for this event?" Otherwise, I really did just sit there, wherever in England and Netherlands, whatever, and people just message me, "Oh, you want to do this event?" I'm like, "Yeah, cool." I never was actually like, I never had an agent. Well, not for that sort of stuff. I was actually very lucky. So if you see all the events I did, I'm just lucky I was in vogue, or the people liked me, or they picked me to go. That's why actually Richard said it years ago. I think he also, by the way, working with Richard definitely helped me. Like, I actually think him having great connections with these people probably also like explained who I am to them and stuff. Because essentially, as far as I know, even if they complained to him, because he always does mourn, that they would come to him thinking he's like my handler, like, "Richard, you've got to get Thorin under control." And he's just going like, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going like sodium pentothal, a fucking syringe or something. Like, he's going off, and it's Thorin. Like, and so he wasn't really my handler, but he would always tell him like, "Yeah, but he is box office though." And then that is somehow that language works for them. They'd sort of be like, "Ah, yeah, true," and they'd sort of just put up with it, But I do also think there's an angle to that people don't get, which is when I was at events, when I say I was like a bit of a diva, it's because I used to have those problems, like the nightmare stack of like, I never used to sleep more than like 4 hours a night. So you're already on edge. You've had all the caffeine loads to get through the day. So you're already like simmering. And then lastly, I'm sorry, I have always said to people, if you're behind the scenes staff and it's like we're doing a really full on intense broadcast where we used to do the whole day, or like we used to do like 12, 14 hours, like I'm sorry, if I like snap at you or something, I can't be like saving my energy to be like super polite and like a mega lovely person. Like, I have to sort of like I'm redlining it already, mate. I have to make it so when I go on camera, that works. I have to deliver there. And so I always thought of it that way. Like, look, I've got to do what I've got to do to get it work on camera, So spoiler, if you bring those fries and they are cold when they touch my lips, oh yeah, I'm going to go, man. I'm going to be like, fucking, not really, but it'd be funny to say this. I'm going to be like that Christian Bale clip back in the day. The one he's just going around like, "You fucked up my lights. Get him out the slide of you." I wish I was like that. I'm not that cool, actually. I'd just be more grumbling, like, "What the fuck? All my fries, they're all cold. I want warm fries." Like, "Shut up and eat your fries." Like, "No, give me another Monster." Whatever, you know how it goes, boys. Oh, the other thing I was going to say was, actually, I do think, though, that Richard probably also, because he was really doing his best to, like, he wasn't just the host, if people don't know. He actually was, like, talking, he knew all the people, like the cameramen, and, like, do they have a dog or a fucking daughter? He actually really was that guy who goes around every night, and at the end, and so because of his connections, I always felt like he probably did influence the flow of the broadcast and let them know that, like, because I mean, what it was like. He was even telling them something like, "I don't need an auto cue. I'll do my way," So to be fair, that was Richard's show. I always thought he had a lot of influence on E-League. It wasn't just E-League doing it all top down.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think he probably put a lot of work into that, and obviously was well tuned into it as well. Yeah, that was he helped a lot with that show. And Richard was like the Thorin wrangler for like the first like 3 or 4 years of broadcast. Like people were like, "You can't bring Thorin onto a desk without Richard," because he was the one who got the humor. He was the one who knew how to like pull you in. And I think Alex built up to that eventually, but in the early going, it really was kind of Richard was the one that people looked to like keep you under control, which was always funny to me because I worked with you on so many broadcasts in the first 3 years on desks. And it was like, Duncan on a broadcast is like not a problem. Never said anything all that controversial, never said anything all that crazy. No. Yeah, never made any like huge issues or anything like that. It was just the Twitter. And we even cleaned that one up over the years.
I honestly think like probably one of the reasons why I think people wanted to pair with Richard as much is because obviously he's one of the few people who are able to play off of you regardless. Because I think every now and again you'll say something that's not controversial or anything, but it's just like out of left pocket, right? Like just out of left field. So people aren't expecting it, so they don't know how to handle it or how to like flow the show further on from that point if they're going to engage in it.
How did this turn into a Duncan handjob show? How did you all start just giving Duncan a handjob?
Listen, I haven't done the events in a while, and I wanted all the plaudits to know I'm still, I'm still remembered fondly. No, I know what we're going to do, because one of the things that made me think of this topic was that Moses was just at that frag Chicago, whatever the fuck they call it. Yeah, but it was in Chicago. Remember, the problem is, Philadelphia has to be in Philadelphia, the close of the name. But yeah, anyway, obviously. So they did this event, and as Moses Moses showed, it actually was like an old school LAN. It was like a whole bunch of teams. It was, and that's why I was doing the joke, like get the case of Balls energy drink if people don't know, because we'll start there. Yeah. If you used to go back in the day to a CPL, which I always used to say, this is how you set the scene of what esports was. So Counter-Strike was the number one game in the West. Like there was, there was like StarCraft in Korea, but we didn't even know that was a thing at the time. Remember, there's no YouTube, there's no Twitter. So CS was it. It taken over from Quake, and the World Championships, all those majors, you think, I heard like those legendary names, Element and Heaton and Potty and Spawn, right? Everyone's dream was to go to Dallas, Texas, right? That sounded even good to me, Moses. I grew up in the UK, Dallas, the TV show, like all parents.
Cowboys.
I come there. I remember even arriving. I arrive, you go to the airport, Fort Worth, right? You get in the taxi, you're going, already, by the way, I'm literally in an alien planet, right? Because I'm on those highways in Dallas. Remember, I've only come from the UK, and it's those highways that are giant highways, just roads going into each other.
8 lanes.
Every single car isn't a car. It's a Dodge pickup. Every single person has like a Dodge, like a full like wagon thing. Because I didn't learn this till I went to America. Like every ad is like, you little pussy, what have you got, a car? You want like a 4-wheel drive that can pull like, fucking submarine out of a river. Like, what the fuck? Who's buying this? And it's all people like, yeah, America, free, we're on a ranch. Like, who is this for? Like, I used to think like, I'm in a different place. I'm traveling there. And as I'm coming into Dallas, dude, I'm thinking VENdetta, holy shit. Because I'm seeing that skyline. And the actual building we're going to is that like ball at the end, like the trophy, as it were, like the Regency Hotel, that amazing thing on the skyline. I'm thinking, is that where we're going? We come in, first immediate disappointment. VENdetta goes like this. For some reason in Dallas, it's not like towns and cities in England. When you go to the center of the town, that's just a residential area with like a hotel and then office blocks. There's no shops. There's no like, thing. So you're there and you're just like, where am I? Like, what is this? Like, I'm in some weird industrial area. And then secondly, you go into the event. Remember, it looks baller from the outside. That looks sick to this day, dude. That like Regency with a massive like tower thing. I go in and I'm thinking, this setup's going to be insane. It's going to be like a stadium or something. And you know this, Moses. You go in and you take the escalators down because you're in the downstairs ballroom. And it really is just like a ballroom that you'd have a LAN in. And it's not even then like, set up sick though. No. It's just wooden tables from like Walmart or something.
With like a white cloth draped over it and fold out chairs.
And then when you play, and then when you have the tournament area, that's even tiny because actually half the business was just selling the BYOC slots. You have this tiny tournament area. You maybe have like a screen with say like 30, ballroom chairs, not even a big audience for it. And the joke used to be, there'd be like a press table and that was just like me and one other guy like, oh, you're there again, are you? Like there was nobody. And so the joke was, I always used to say the games looked epic and you were like, this is incredible. But when you actually went there as a European, you were like, this is the zenith, like to come to this ballroom in Dallas. Yeah, is this what it is? Because remember, what people don't know, because in the early days they sort of scammed the sponsors. Dude, there was still like 300k prize purse for the whole event though, and fifth place might be like 40k or 50k. So it actually was back then. People don't know. It actually took like a lull in the middle with the economics. But at the time, even the money was big. But I remember it was just so amateurish. And you know this, Moses. If you were there was only 2 possible foodstuffs you could eat. You could eat Papa John's. By the way, you don't even order it. The guy would just bring like 50 boxes and just be like, who wants Papa John's? You're like, all right, just buy some.
$10 pizza.
Or you go to the bar of the Regency Hotel and just eat that burger for like $28. I can't know which one of those ones where it's just a basic one, but hotels like. And then also this hotel, I'm going to say it was like, I'd give it like 3.5 stars, 3 stars maybe. It wasn't great,
no, it was nothing special.
It looked awesome from the outside though, like I say.
But there was a cool feeling walking into that every year because it would be like a line of people waiting to check in, all of them holding a giant tower PC, probably a monitor as well, a giant CRT in there making multiple trips in and out. You'd see all like the legendary players in line. You'd see all the guys you've been playing against online just standing there. That part of the vibe was absolutely sick.
When you walked in and you were like, oh my God, that's Heaton over there. Oh shit. Yeah. Play it cool.
Yes.
It was mad nerdy, I have to say.
Go on.
No, there's just a quick side note. You mentioned the towers and everything. I just remember from the old BYC lines, like you knew like the real like LAN goers, the one who were like really balling out, they came with like only a backpack because they had a shuttle PC.
Yes.
And that they were like true gamers because they like that's the only thing they needed. They were going to like 4 LANs and like 1 winter holiday or something. Like shuttle PCs were just like a pinnacle.
also started to realize that shuttle PCs were the easiest ones to steal.
Yep.
Yeah.
The amount of shuttle PCs that got jacked from CPLs has got to be fucking wild. But yeah, I mean, even like once everyone was set up too, like walking in there, it would just be like a ballroom that could fit. Like I don't even know how many we would have there, but it probably could have. It was probably like big enough for like a 1,500 person like expo of some kind, and it would just be row upon row upon row of tables, brightly lit monitors, fans blowing into the towers because they would take the sides off to make sure it was properly cooled, and it would just be packed full of people playing video games for 3 days straight. 3 days straight, no one would fucking leave that room. And I'll tell you what was even like, what was crazier too, was when you would go back to like someone's room later that night, of like, because nobody could afford anything. So the rooms would be one team to a room. It'd be 5 people into a room for 3 days straight. These places would be fucking train wrecks. They would be absolute messes of hotel rooms.
Dude, the thing is, they were even doing that shit where, like, first of all the American players, the first thing they do is disable the smoke alarm. So by the way, I mean, there's no one died. There's no one died in a fire. There'd be like 10 deaths as well if that happened, because as you said, it's like infinite people to a room. Secondly, you know the law in America is you can have 2 people in the beds, you can have 1 on a cot. That's it. You're not even legally allowed more. They just sneak people up because they didn't used to check, and there really would be like 10 people to a room. And I remember going into some of these rooms, and it's like as the room would open, dude, it's like everything my mother, as a kid told me, not like watch out for all the drugs and all this stuff. Like it's like there'd just be all the people with the bong, like people just shotgunning fucking beers. Then there'd just be some player who had like a game at 9 a.m, and he'd just be like curled up in the fetal position, like trying to sleep near like a radiator or something. And you'd like stumble over, oh shit, sorry, I didn't see you down there. What the fuck? Like, and by the way, I'm saying just some player. It'd be someone on like, some top West Coast team who's like some opera or something, like trying to get some shot eye before the big game against like SK Gaming and Eaton. And by the way, they're over in their like actual hotel rooms, drinking water, sleeping, one into bed, like 9 p.m, like get up at 6 in the morning, like, and then all these NA players are just like, shit, what time? I have to play in 3 hours? Like, it was so amateurish, but I tell you what, it was banter. It was banter.
The West Coast rooms are the best because it was just a fucking wall of marijuana just hitting you in the face when you walked in. It was palpable. You could feel it leaving the room.
Oh, they were all doing that thing where they had the towel under the door as well to block.
Warm wet towel to absorb the smoke. Yeah. They'd have like the dryer lint inside the toilet paper roll to exhale through so the smell didn't come out. We're teaching everyone all the tricks. But yeah, they'd be in there like playing Congo Bongo. Remember that game for like GameCube? It was like DDR except with bongos. Yes. It'd just be every stereotypical stoner thing you could do was happening in those rooms. But I mean, man, those events were so much fun, dude. Like just meeting people and getting to hang out in that environment. And that's like kind of what Fragacago was. Like that was cool being there because it was the same thing. It was just rows of it. It was 6 games at a time, best of 3s the whole way through. Like 90% of the people I talked to there were like, this is my first LAN event like ever. This is fucking sick.
Oh,
and like everyone was just loving it. And there was like no expectations of like, what the big tournaments do now. No expectations in terms of like having like press obligations, of having to be here at a certain time, of having to get your gear checked in. It was come in, set up, and play. And there's something like really fucking cool about that like really cool that I when I walked in there, I was like, shit, I've been missing this. Like this is great. Like this is some nostalgia hitting. Shit talk flying across the room, people yelling at each other, asking them what the fuck they're doing when they're winning a clutch. It was fucking great, man. I loved it.
Honestly, that's one of the things that, again, as we've become like more and more professionalized, that I've missed. And I feel like, honestly, it is a bit of a detriment to basically like the developing scene as well. Because again, one of the things we credited the Danes for so much in terms of why they were so good at the start of CSGO, why they had so many talents, why there was always like a new guy you hadn't heard about who turned out to be like equally good as all the ones at the top, etc. That was because they had BYOC lands like every single weekend. Every single weekend. It's a small country, right? So you could easily like travel. You get 5 people in a car. You just go around, play nonstop. I'm kind of saddened by the fact that we've more or less just lost out completely on BYOCs, at least to my knowledge. Like here in Norway, you have maybe like 2 BYOCs a year. One of them is like The Gathering, which is no longer like a gaming focused event anymore. And then you maybe have like one other one that teams will go to, but it doesn't feel like it's like as I want to say like it's not necessarily like targeted towards the people playing anymore, which is kind of sad. And we don't really have community sites like we did before as well. Like before like any sort of like Nordic LAN would end up at cs.nu or Fragbite or Nesk or whatever, right? And the same thing would be for SK. SK would cover not just like international events, but if something is happening in Portugal, like, you're getting like updates from LAN events and that kind of stuff there as well. So That's just completely disappeared because we only have HLTV, more or less. And
I know what you mean though about the actual LAN angle though, because that's one thing I was thinking about is like it just shows how basically like technology always gives but takes something at the same time.
Yeah.
So in this, like when the joke is the reason we all originally began with LANs is because no one had the amazing internet, or some teammate didn't have internet, or you just all had bad ping, and you want to play on LAN and see like real CS and play like pros, right? I'm talking about even when you go to the amateur ones. But the point is, once at home, everyone has like not just everyone had DSL. Now everyone has like the joke is I have like 10 meg, like 600 meg down and fucking 60 meg up or something. I would never need to go to a LAN. But because I would never need to, now I don't go, and therefore LANs don't exist. And so we have lost this whole aspect because, let's be real, playing in a stack at home is fun, but it isn't the same as being at the LAN. And it definitely, by the way, playing an online cop is nothing like being at these tournaments we're talking about. It doesn't have the atmosphere and the vibe and people watching behind you and seeing if you're cheating and shit. It's not the same. There are elements of it, and we're not just being boomers. It really did have like, it had actually a special charm, like Moses said. Like when you were there, you did have that feeling of like, fuck, like this is what I would be missing for the last 3 weeks or whatever when I've been working, right?
Yeah,
and I don't really care that the games go till 3 a.m. because I'm having a fucking kick-ass time. Like some of those nights in Chicago ended at 3 a.m. and like no one cared because everyone was just pumped to be there. And obviously you can't do that for professional level competition. I actually take a different. I don't know. I think my opinion of it was very similar to what you guys just said about like not really having to go to LANs, but this event sold out 32 teams in under 72 hours. And that was people traveling from all different parts of the States. There was an Icelandic team that was inquiring that wanted to fly over and come to the event. Like, I don't know why. It was a $10,000 prize pool. You would have to spend that money to get them all there, but you know, they wanted to do it. So I think the desire for it is there. It's just those events don't make money. You know, like those events aren't money makers, and the people running it, even the Fragacago guys and the Fragadelphia guys, even talk to them. They're like, "Yep, we break even on these events. They break even like doing bare bones everything, which is why the broadcast doesn't have like your typical names for casters, which is why there's 6 games played at a time and only one of them is streamed. There's just not enough money to make all these things work. So I think that in certain level, I think more of these events could happen. It's just who the fuck wants to operate them to some extent. You know, like why would you want to go down this road? It's not a money making venture in any way, unless someone cracks the code and figures it out. But you know, it's a hard thing to make money when you can't attract the bigger name sponsors and bigger name partners, which is already hard enough for the big leagues and big events to do as it is.
Also, here's the thing, Moses. Here's how you know I really was just a little 18-year-old, doughy, wide-eyed boy from the UK. Like, oh my God, I'm in the big time now. I'm at CPL. Is because I was so young in like the maturity-wise. Like, look, I'd like drunk loads of alcohol and done all that stuff in the UK because we have that culture. But actually, I was never someone who drank coffee, for example. I used to drink like Coca-Cola or something, right? So when I first went and they had this energy drink called Balls, which obviously was trying to be I mean, by the way, it was like early 2000s humor. Like, like, you know, you got your nuts, like balls. So when you get that,
blue as well.
I remember I would even say like, well, what's that though? What is? And I'd have to say, what is this? And then that's how I learned, Moses, that caffeine actually is also a drug, believe it or not. Because I remember drinking one like, this isn't even that good. Wait a minute,
dude.
And then all I remember was like I was going through cases of that shit, and then also I was then learning the effects of caffeine, which is like I'm not even tired at 6 a.m. Then like at 9, like. You know, like, oh, that was wild, man. Some of those were like benders almost.
They were going for like $1 a bottle.
Yes.
Like they would just be people like passing them out.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, look, that was the first of a lot of things. That was the first time, like I remember one of those CPL events we went to was the first time I'd ever seen that they hired like cute women to come like sell products as well. Like
which, by the way, people don't even know it. You might all think everyone's a nerd now. Even like pros were such nerds then that if a woman had just walked up to you, you'd have just handed your wallet off like all the way. Yeah, whatever you say, like, dude, like a hot girl's just talking to you for no reason. Well, it's
selling me a razor.
Turns out to sell me some stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, like the thing with balls especially is like a core memory for me because like my first LAN event ever in 2005, which was Leto LAN, which is an event that had like big hype around it because Clan IT went there, like the Danish Clan IT with Sonic and everything.
Yeah.
I just distinctly remember the team manager of Team 9, Morpheus, was literally standing in the middle of the entire venue, or I guess the gym, which is I guess what we used, and like throwing out balls gore on us, like to everyone, and it was just like I don't know, it's like this weird thing like where you see with Prime now, like how kids are just going fucking.
Oh, everyone's going nuts to try and grab it.
Yeah,
and shit, right?
exactly, and it's like exact same effect. Like the entire line just like yeah, like it's like a magnet to the fucking center, just like getting thrown in his glass bottles as well, mind you.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Just getting like thrown willy nilly all over the crowds, and then you have two like booth babes like next to them, just like handing it out as well, and that's like a thing that's just stuck with me forever. And that was like an amazing moment as just like a tiny teenager going to their first event.
Here's the crazy thing about these events as like someone like who actually like competed in them too, is like it's so vastly different in terms of like there were no like official start times. You'd be like in the BYOC as a team, and you'd be like, you kind of know like, okay, my match is going to be played depending on the other matches. I have a match in like the next 2 hours or something like that. It could be 2 hours, it could be 30 minutes, and you'd be sitting in the BYOC, maybe getting a last scrim in, going over some tactics, and the only way you would know if it was your turn to play is some motherfucker on a megaphone. I think it was Angel. Wasn't it Angel Munoz would come up on a megaphone and be like, Team United 5, come to the tournament area. Match starts in 20 minutes. And if you miss that, like, you're just fucked.
People don't know this. There are games where people did, turn up and play, but they like got to the PC like 1 second before, like, because as Moses is saying, you'd think you have 2 hours, you'd be going off to get that burger I'm talking about, and as you're like about to take a bite, somebody like, you got it in, we're about to play the low back and give it up. It was ridiculous. And as you say, by the way, they're absolutely, this is actually nuts when I think back now, because here's another detail, Vendetta. A lot of people don't know this about the CPLs. They weren't professional in the sense of like the teams. Even like if SK Gaming goes, they have to pay the entry fee as well. Everyone pays it. What was it? Was it like $200 or something? Or $100?
Yeah, it was
pretty high.
50, yeah.
But basically everyone, even the pros, like Heaton, was paying that fee. I mean, obviously the org paid it for it, but you know what? Even they paid that fee. Yeah. And so as a result, you could pay and enter your team in the BYOC and play the game. And if you missed it, like Vendetta says, after like 20 minutes, they would just call it and it's a walkover. It's like you might have driven all the way across America, go there, and you just missed that game. And it's like, oh, walk over to the other team, they win. You're like, oh, sound fuck my life, I guess. There's no way to complain.
Like one of the charming parts as well, like obviously like with 1.6 as well, is that it had a ton of bugs, right? And the whole rule set was so fucking...
Like smokes would just break the game and stuff. And the worst ever was, dude, I don't think they ever fixed this until like 1.6 or something. You remember Moses, where like if the guy's docked and you're behind him with like a deagle, you just like can't get his head hitbox. Like there was shit like that. So you were just doing in the game where you're just thinking like, this doesn't seem right in a professional. There's no one you can complain to. It's not like there's a ref to like time out, like pause. We need like a replay. You just play it. If you lose, you lose. By the way, if you get affected by some bug, you're just fucked. Yeah. If the smoke blags out, you're just fucked, mate.
And it's such a wild thing because you'd have people literally coming from like for CPL, right? Because even like one of the cool things about CPL is that it's where all the good teams, like all the good teams in the world would come there, and that was a given. But like if you were a 5 from Norway and you had enough money, you could go to CPL. You could pay to go into the BYOC. You could run into SK in the second round, like, and it's set
Dude,
problem.
Moses mentioned it there, but bizarrely, there were sometimes teams that would come, and you remember this, Moses? There was a team, Merck from fucking Iceland used to come. Even though they weren't like top pros, but they were good at the game, I have to say. They weren't bad.
Oh, that was one of my favorite memories of CPL. We played them in the, because like the way the CPL used to work is this was literally a 128 team tournament, something mental like that. So they did the first round was like single elimination.
Yep.
So we played Merck in round 1 and beat them, and they had flown all the way from Iceland, saved all the money, and had to go shake their hands after we beat them and knock them out of the event in round 1. Just in fucking tears, man. I felt so bad. It was like the only time in my life I felt bad for winning a game of Counter-Strike. It was like, oh my Lord, that was painful. But yeah, and it was crazy too. Because remember those events too, like the map. There was no map veto.
Oh, that was the matter shit.
They just told you the map which was played in each round. Like this round will be Train, this round will be Dust 2, this round is back to Train, and then you have whatever Inferno, and then you have CPL Mill, and that's just, you'd have to know how deep you went in the tournament, which stage you were playing which map, and that was the wildest thing about it, because my team, we looked at it and we said, okay, we have to obviously practice Train hard because Train is the single elimination game.
Yes.
And so we practiced the shit ton out of Train. That was the only map we played for like a month leading into the event because we wanted to get out of the single elim round. And it was just like everything about it was just like a very unique setup. We played a British team at like the 7th, 8th place decider in one event, and that was CPL Fire, which Europeans didn't even play.
Yeah.
So like we showed up to the game and we were playing, and like 8 rounds in, we were up like 8-0.
There you go.
Yeah, we were up like 8-0, and one of the guys, like it was Magic Harper's team. I don't think it was him, but one of their guys just fell asleep at his PC. He just went to bed. He was like, "There's no point in fucking playing this. We don't know the map at all." He just went to sleep. So every round we would kill 4 of them and have to go kill his teammate and spawn.
You were like, that's the easiest. You were like, that's the easiest $2,000 we should ever made.
Yeah,
Shame on you, dickhead. By the way, the other thing was 2 things. One. Yeah, that was mad, because I even used to tell people that is actually why I do think you have to give it up to the people like Eaton Pot who just won 1 million CPLs. Because like he's saying, think about the modern day, right? Dude, even like Astralis, if I could decide the map veto for them, they could lose to anyone in their prime. Like, part of it is like you practice this, you have your veto, you know what I'm going to play, maybe your theory craft. The way the CPL worked for real was, whatever like the upper bracket matches, if you just go there and it just so happens that's their best map, well, shower luck, you have to win. You don't have a choice. Yeah. So that's why the guys who really could just go to the finals every time, they were goated, mate. Their mental must have been crazy as well, the fortitude.
Thankfully, it was only a five map pool, I think, at that time, wasn't it? It was like
no, it wasn't.
Inferno.
Because remember, in the early rounds, it would sometimes have shit like fucking Prodigy Dude.
Yeah,
and Cobble and Aztec.
I miss Prodigy. Prodigy was fun.
So that's another thing, right, about the way that the seeding went, is if they did the seeding all right, and here's the thing, they were actually okay. It's just every now and then if someone changed org or something, they'd sometimes fuck the seeding up. That's the problem, because in the early rounds is where you'd be playing Prodigy. It doesn't matter, because then like Heated is just farming some guy who's like just some random 5-star. But every now and then you would get a mad game that was just like Aztec between like, I don't know, fucking like Swedes and like the top NA team. What is it? Dude, we don't even PCW, no one scrims this. Like, what are we even doing? Like, and by the way, if anyone knows old 1.3 fucking Aztec, the one where you just can't ever get around on T-side, if you're just getting gunned down on T-side,
like you just lose the game.
It's just over. Is that the most CT-sided map ever? Because essentially, the CTs just spawn with map control. You can't get in, can you?
And everything's a tight choke point, and everything's a disadvantage fight. Yeah, that or Prodigy were the 2 most CT-sided maps in the game. It was fucking mental. But also, you had to have a strong mental because, even Cobble. Actually, Cobble was super CT-sided.
Oh, yes.
Broken as shit.
Yeah, Cobble was really busted in 1.6. And with all the spam spots, man, it was actually Nuke was really CT. Actually, every map was fucking CT-sided.
In a way.
But I mean, imagine having to go into an elimination game and starting on the T side of fucking Prodigy or Aztec. Like, you had to actually go in and be like, we cannot be fuck ups on this one. We will only get 2 rounds. Nobody freak out. Nobody lose your shit. Like, let's just focus on the game.
I think one of the, and then like coming back to the rule set thing that I mentioned, like one of the most brutal things is like when you go to a BYOC, and again, like didn't matter if it was CPL or like a local or whatever, but knowing that like round 2, like early on in the tournament, and you might be, one of the favorites to at least make it, let's say like top 32 or something, and you see Nuke being played in the second round, and you have one of your teammates throw a bug flash at ramp. And the
forfeit all the rounds.
You forfeit every single round after that bug flash. Because the rule set was just so fucking harsh. Like, any sort of bug, even if it wasn't intentional, obviously, like, anytime that happened, it's just like, we lost the half. Like, it happened in Pistol, we're down 0-12. Fuck our lives.
Remember at like one of the qualifiers, there used to be a bug on Nuke in 1.4, 1.3 or 1.4 where if you climbed the Nuke ladder to heaven with a flashbang,
you could lag out, right?
Not pinned. Yeah, it would crash you halfway up the ladder. Yep. And I did it twice in a qualifying game, and I was like at that time as like a 14-year-old, sweating fucking bullets. I felt horrible. I felt like a dumbass, especially the second time you do it. That was so crazy. And there were so many of those things that you just had to work around. And by the way, CPL, for as much as it sucked in a lot of ways, was like super progressive in the sense that they had these CPL qualifiers, which is unheard of, regional ones that would contribute $2,500 to your travel fund if you won the event, and like $1,000 if you got second place. But these events, I drove to Chicago with one with my team, and it was played at a Circuit City, which is like budget Best Buy.
Right.
And it was played in like
electronic store for people who are European,
It was like played in like the back staff room, like just like the employee break room of just like an empty tiny room, 10 PCs along the wall, no admin, just one Circuit City employee there who's like, yep, the PCs are working, have fun, go. And that was it. And like the players pretty much ran it. did you guys have this back in the day too? I'm assuming you did. Back in the days, remember like monitors couldn't get over like 60 refresh rate.
Yep.
So you had to have like the refresh rate fixed to get to like 90. Yeah. And it was so much better. But I remember going to events and not knowing that even existed and playing teams on it, and they had brought it on like a fucking floppy drive, right?
Yep.
And we were like, oh, can we get that for the game? And they'd be like, no, you can't have
That's
this.
ours.
You'll be playing at 60 hertz. And I was just like, holy shit. like the level sometimes you'd go into games just completely disadvantaged.
No, it's bullshit.
Like,
I'll give you an example, because this actually ties to a real player. So, because obviously a classic thing of LANs is like, if the person's good online and they haven't done to LAN yet, you just assume they cheat. Like, by the way, even worse if you're an ARPer, because everyone hates ARPers because the majority of us don't use the ARP, right? So everyone's like, yeah, it definitely cheats. So if you ever go to a LAN as an ARPer and you fail your first LAN, you may as well just retire, mate. Like, you're just a cheater at that point. But the funniest one is everyone will know the player Storm, who played for Complexity and even played early CSGO. He famously, right, was some like demon, because I think he lived in like the countryside or something. He was some like demon in like Calmaine or something, which was the most infamous cheating part of the semi-pro scene. And everyone said he just cheats, right? And if you know his game, by the way, later as a pro, he was a really smart player and he had really good like game sense stuff. But when he came to his first CPL, I remember he bombed it. A lot of cheaters did. He bombed it, right? Because it's worse than the Hertz one, dude. He didn't know about the max mouse accel fix. So he was just so when he went there, he didn't know this. He played and was total shit. And at the end, someone supposedly told him, like, you can just apply this thing there. And he was like, all right.
Turn off.
And by the way, when you go to the other people and go, it wasn't me who was shit. I didn't have this thing applied. They're like, yeah, you're okay, cheater. Yeah, whatever you say, you cheated.
Dude, I thought he cheated when we played him online. I thought he for sure cheated. And I remember I played him at that CPL as well. We beat him on train, and we were loving it. We were talking shit to him the whole time. We were typing in chat. He had like 2 kills. We're like, what's up? Storm online's a little bit different, isn't it? And we were talking smack the whole fucking time. We loved it. It was great.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. No mercy. The other team's just on your throat, step on your throat the whole time as well. Sure. Yeah, trying to break literally trying to break your mind in the game as well.
Yeah, yeah, dude, it was great.
It's actually funny. Like, I've only been on the receiving end of that because I'll happily admit I was always a worse LAN player than I was online. But I think like for most on average, players level will be lower at LAN for whatever reason, whether it's comfortability or what have you.
I mean,
again, we had one.
The joke is right? Obviously in your case you were from Norway, mate, so you were just like in the office of the internet is your house. Like you had 0 ping at home and then 4 ping at LAN. Yeah, so it was worse for you at LAN. You're like, fucking hard to get, because dude, that used to be another real thing. Like if you ever played like an online game in Europe, vENdetta, and the Swedes, unironically, Moses, would argue for half an hour, like, I'm not playing on this server. This server has 12 ping. I want to go on the one with 9 ping. And I was just sitting there on my like 46 ping or something, like, what are you talking about? Like, and they're like, I can't even hit a shot. This is nonsense. And then they'd be making excuses. His server had 20 ping. I couldn't even hit any ARP shots. I'd just be thinking of like
fucking divas, bro.
I know. I was just thinking of like the guy from like fucking Poland who was on like 70 ping. Like, hello, I tried to shoot the guy. Like, it was wild back then. It was so wild.
We lived a very charmed life in that sense, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a mess.
In NA, because our country's so fucking big, like you couldn't even really play East Coast to West Coast.
Yep.
So what they had to do, the only way to make it fair, you would play the first half on a West Coast server. One team would have 10 ping, the other team would have like 80 to 90 to 100 ping, and then the second half would play on an East Coast server where the West Coasters would have 80 to 90 to 100 ping.
Think how stupid. That's like if one person came to an MMA fight with like a broken leg, you were like, right, after 2 rounds we'll break your leg. Like, what the fuck? That doesn't make any sense. What are we doing? And you're right, though, these were like official games as well. And so like the fans, by the way, they couldn't see the scoreboard. So they're just going, wow, like fucking, I'll throw it, wow, Frod's having a bad game. It's like, he's on like 120 ping. What are you talking about? Like, but you never knew that. No, everyone's just playing the game on it. By the way, the other thing as well, like I was saying, was it wasn't just Merc, though, who at least spoke English and could like get in the land so you could go to the lethal game. Dude, it was the teams early on when it was only NA and EU were good, who would come from like, first of all, the Brazilians used to come and they would come like 22nd at the event. There would be that team from fucking Chile, Punto Ciel or whatever. I can't lie. Listen, it was a different world back then. I was laughing just even at the name. I was imagining, maybe a sombrero. So listen, it was a different world. And then also the maddest was every now and then for real, you would just get a team. I don't even know. They must have just had like a qualifier like your same as you just get a team that would be like, we're from Singapore. Like, what the fuck? who? And then, by the way, they would also get banged out immediately in the game because you can imagine vENdetta. Like, they don't even have anyone to practice, and they just go to a map. And even if they had good aim, it's like you don't know any of the strats. You've never watched a demo. It's awful.
You don't know the timings.
Everyone's going to
know what anyone's doing.
And so that's the worst one. You go out like 128th place, and then again on the play, like right back to Singapore. Like what?
But that's like one of the legendary things about like the rise of South Korean CS, right?
Yes.
Again, because they didn't have practice partners. Same thing with WNV and like the Chinese teams as well. The fact that they would practice against like expert like modded bots, like modded Z bots or pod bots, etc.
That is crazy.
And do their practice that way. Because again, like South Korea to China, you would ping awfully. I mean, you still do today, right? Like to a certain extent, right? So they wouldn't have anyone to practice against. They would just dry run strats and then play against bots that
show up and hope for the best.
Yeah, like essentially had built-in aimbot, right? The second they saw you, and that's how they prepare for events. And then you eventually have like obviously like the Lunatic Highs and those kind of guys who end up getting like second at a CPL. Like it's fucking insane.
Well, that's like crazy shit back then too, because like as Duncan said earlier in the show, like we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have Reddit, we didn't have anything that would let you see the game except for the HLTV demos. And even that was like, if you're going to download that demo, it's going to take you, because the internet wasn't good back then, it'll take you 45 minutes to an hour to download the demo. And then there was no actual commands to fast forward or reset. So you'd look through a round, and if you missed something, you'd have to start the demo all the way back over again. And if you missed something in round 12, you'd have to watch the first 11 rounds at regular speed the whole way through. And there was no other way to do anything. So when teams invented tricks, there was not like, if a team invents a trick nowadays, it's on Twitter, it's on Reddit, it's on YouTube within like 30 seconds. Back then, it would take like an entire year, like 6 months for people to catch up to it, to even realize like what had
you remember that infamous one where famously K-Sharp and 3D did get wrecked by that Australian team, F-Zero, where they threw the smoke. Yeah. The whole point is, when that was happening to them, it was like the Olaf Meister boost. They're just like, they have no clue. They don't know what is happening to them. It's happening. That was MR12 back then as well, so you have not that many rounds. Also, by the way, that was on Cobble, where it's a CT side map, and they were doing it from T side, so they're just winning all these T rounds. So you know you're fucked already, by the way, when you swap off, because you don't know what they're doing. You don't know there's no way to check. There's no like person that can show you what they're doing, and you just have to like put up with it until like months later when you test it yourself, like you say.
You want to know how much of a mindfuck that was I remember watching that demo. There weren't smoke lineups back then. They were just chucking smokes over the wall and being like, they're going to land somewhere. They're going to land somewhere. And you look at the demo and it's like, these smokes aren't even blocking anything. There's just 3 smokes pluming randomly somewhere on the map. And they're still just like, what the fuck do we do? like they're still just like, we've never seen anything like this. They were broken. They were just mentally fucking shattered.
By the way, another angle as well I've got to bring up, because this is where like the Zoomers are really just going to check out like, all right, old man, because I can't even believe I was even allowed to go to these events, Moses, because I used to obviously fly. By the way, I'd never been on a plane before. I was flying from the UK to fucking Dallas in the middle of America, and I would be going with, like, let's say for the event I need $200. I would have like $205. So I've never thought about this at the time, but if anything went wrong, I would be fucked, and no cell phones back then. And so, like, luckily, nothing ever did happen. I just skated by. I always used to think, what the fuck? Because you know some of the stories. Like, look, he wouldn't mind me telling me. The most ridiculous was De Beers, because obviously he was a really good player, but he would really just go to, like, he would go to the boot camp plus a CPL with, like, $18 vENdetta. Like, I'm just going to make it work. It's like, how? And it's like, well, I don't know. I guess he just got like the $1 hot dog and fucking, scrounged off this worse and gotten this. Oh, you guys got some? Can I have a slice? That he was playing. He was a pro dude. He was really good as well. He was trying to win the CPL on like $18 or something like.
He's like, after
not a day,
balls,
for all 3 weeks. Yeah, exactly. I know.
Dude, like the best part is I can totally believe that, because like, Eric is still the same person. Like,
yeah, he is.
Right.
It's exactly the same.
But also, like that was just the thing at the time, though, was like everyone was doing anything they possibly could to get to that event. Yes. I remember my brother went down for his first CPL, hitched a ride with someone from Michigan, and they drove like the 22 hours it takes to get to Dallas, Texas from there, and didn't get a hotel room. Didn't have the money for a hotel room. For the first 2 nights of the event, he slept by the pool on like the fold out chairs by the pool.
The sun chair
until the hotel staff found him and kicked him out one night, and then he had to find like a room to bunk up in. But like half of his event was just like, I don't know, I'll find somewhere to sleep.
Thing is, though, I'll guarantee, as shit as that sounds now, when we used to, I'll bet he felt so alive, though. I bet it was insane. Like,
he fucking loved it.
I'm like Woodstock now, so I bet it felt crazy,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
He fucking loved that shit. And I mean, everyone did the same. I didn't show up with any like crazy amount of money either. It was kind of like, again, like you said, like the $1 or $5 pizzas that were being passed around. Everyone on the team buys one at some point during the weekend. You get your couple meals in, and then all of a sudden you have a team who's able to live off like 150 combined dollars for the fucking event.
By the way, Moses, just as an aside, because I have to quiz you as an American, because I don't live there, so I can't tell you. Am I hallucinating? Because I know they obviously do change the ingredients and do things like put processed stuff in. Dude, am I full of shit when I say this? This is just nostalgia that's got to me. But I'm not joking. Back then, the Papa John's pizza back then was really fucking good.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Like the ones now were just a bit. Last time I went to America, I thought it was just whatever. Like I'm pretty sure back then it was actually fine. It was pretty good actually. It was pretty good pizza.
Yeah. Papa John was always my favorite of the. I guess I'll call them like the lower class pizzas. Better than Domino's, better than Pizza Hut, but. I would imagine, in America, a very capitalist society. Over the years, they found some ways to cut a few corners here or there, find better costs with a few like tomatoes and the tomato sauce, add a little bit of sugar to like kind of hide a few things. They've definitely tinkered with it a little bit.
Yes, agreed. Because that's the thing, like, I want to believe it's not just because I was misty and wide-eyed. I swear it did taste way better back then. Like, because even back then, it would even taste good cold, mate. You were like, this is the shit. Yeah. And also, like, it was the only food
dipped in that garlic butter sauce as well.
Of course.
I mean, like, LAN budgeting was a real thing. Like, the way we do it here, like, for me, again, like, this is obviously, like, lucky enough to have parents to kind of indulge you in your hobby, right? But you would literally just stock up with shit. So you'd have your mom or dad just buy you a ton of food that we'd pack into like your duffel bag. They would have on the side, and that's literally your entire food budget because you didn't actually have money to spend or something, and then you banked on there being
I never
like
did that shit.
Either like a shelter or talking like bomb shelter or literally just like having those kind of stands like the gym stands, bleachers. Like one of those would like either like usually when LANs would be at schools, you have a bomb shelter built into the school. If it's an old building. Yeah.
Oh, I am forgetting, to be fair, in the North, you have to pick, a lot of people from the West don't know this. Nordic people obviously are all scared that Russia was going to like nuke them and go But I forget in the UK, I'm like, bomb shelter, the fuck, it's like 1950 or something. What are we talking about? Okay, fair enough. I believe you. Yeah.
So like all schools would have bomb shelters. So, and that's basically like a sleeping hall during a LAN, right?
Dude, imagine running in like the Soviet, I guess the Soviets got Russia's attacking, get in the bomb shelter, everyone. Like. No, the other thing as well, by the way, that we must bring up is even at CPLs and real LANs in Source as well, vENdetta, even if it was professional level, and these are demos you could pull up now and watch legendary players, another mad thing is, because of how unprofessional, there was no security, there was no like, even the organizer would just be a guy walking around. By the way, there was always, even though we're all nerds, like, there was always with certain players, the imminent like threat of like, they might just start fighting people, like, and punching people, and like, that was always there of like, oh shit, I think they talk to each other online, like, and it wouldn't happen that often, but there was always a potential for like someone to get punched, right, Moses? Like someone to fucking have a brawl or something.
We had like back in the day, because you could, I mean, configuring was even bigger than like cheating back in the day, because there were so many console commands in like 1.4 and 5 that would make hitboxes go from like this big to like this big. So you could actually kill people like behind walls, not even shooting them through a wall. It was just their hitbox was so massive that you'd get the kill. And if you got caught doing that at LAN, there was one guy I remember some guy found out he was doing it at the CPL BYOC, spit in his face. I know a couple of fights have broken out. There was the one ESWC where Shaguar got straight up jacked, just straight up cold cocked by I mean, nobody knows who he is anymore. By Tiger, the guy who started like the 1G club. The guy just like, I was standing outside with my team between matches, and we were just like hanging out, chatting about the next map. And this dude walks up and walked over to like Mikey, walked over to Method, and just goes, "Hey man, I'm like Shaguar's biggest fan. Do you think you could like send him out? I want to." Oh,
he made him. He got his friend to set him up as well. That's even worse.
And this is remember, this is the old days of no social media, no YouTube, so nobody knew what anyone looked like. So Shag comes out like a little bit of pep in his step. He's like, "Yeah, I'm Shaguar. I'm the shit, bro. Like, what, you want me to sign your mouse pad? I can do that for you. Yeah, no problem." And then the guy just fucking decks him right in the stomach, right outside. And he qualified.
Imagine just being Shaguar as well. Like, you Shaguar? Yeah, of course I am. What was that for? You're never going to forget Tiger 1G, bitch. You're like, what the fuck?
Dude, poor Shaguar. I mean, look, he's had a fine. He's done fine for himself in life to make up for it. Remember that CPO where they used to do like the mock awards on Godfrag?
Yep.
And one of them
basically their equivalent of the Razzies sort of a thing, yeah.
Yeah, and one of them was like the most homeless award, and it was a picture of Jaguar in like a torn up, oversized hoodie, shoes that didn't have laces that were like 2 sizes too big, just sat back in a chair with the worst posture, so he looked massively fat. Oh my lord, by the way,
this actually shows you how, first of all, when you get amazing at the game, it does improve your rep immediately. You just seem cooler. And then also, to be fair to him, he did lose all that weight and he did actually become like an actual pro. If people don't know, this is a thing a modern fan won't know, even if they're a Jaguar fan, is in the NA scene, another thing that made him kind of a meme is because people won't know this, but his dad was like a documentary filmmaker in Canada.
Yeah.
And he made a documentary about Jaguar, but listen to the angle, guys, that like presenting him being pro CS, and he already, by the way, was at the level where he was going to CPLs and like doing like coming like 13th or something. But it was presented as though he was an addict, and like you would think in this, like they made it look like him having to play CS was like, I need crack, like please, like, and he's like sneaking out to go and play like
in dark
and so
basements.
unfortunately that did make him like a mad meme because we all watched this like, what the fuck is this? Like, and everyone was memeing on him so hard, mate, so hard.
That was the big thing back in the day, because I mean, we had my brother and I had to deal with it with our parents. I know a lot of players did, was like it was at that point because the older generation didn't understand anything about gaming whatsoever. It was presented as a drug addiction in every sense of the word. It was weird. It was wild.
Oh no, they used to make it sound like, don't let your kids get into this.
Yeah. Also, it only really started to be a drug addiction when World of Warcraft came out. Counter-Strike was fun.
Okay, question for you guys. Have you ever had to, well, not wake up, but pretend to be asleep, then wake or get out of bed like half an hour later after your parents gone to bed to find your TP cable, like your internet cable, to plug it back in so you can continue playing? Yeah, you've all done that, right? I feel like that's like more like an older, like olden age problem or something. But that was like a classic way for parents to like prevent you.
Mine used to think it was the power cable at the back of the PC. They didn't realize I could buy. I had like 50
that's the easiest one to buy. Yeah, that's like $10. That one. In fact, the joke is any single PC cable works like that. Oh, they got wrecked on that one. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's like back in the day, the other one was.
No, Mom and Dad, please, not the power cable.
You know, if you had the old school TV with the little aerial, well, you can take that aerial in here. Any fucking coat hanger just fits in there and becomes an aerial. Joke's on you. You can't stop me watching fucking weird Euro fucking erotic movies that I don't understand that might have some nudity in at 2 a.m. on a school day. I'll do that if I want to. Don't worry about it. Anyway, I think I turned out okay, so I'm not fucked up or anything.
Yeah, we all turned out reasonably okay.
Oh my God, you've just made me think of something mental as well, Moses. We're just going to be honest on this show. You know what, guys? We're comfortable in who we are. The other thing that was mind-blowing about going to events is this is in the very early days of the internet. There aren't torrent sites or like... Back then, another thing that you'd find, Moses, when you went to a LAN was you'd go to the LAN and you'd check on that network, wouldn't you? And you'd have all the PCs and you'd click on someone's PC. And remember, you're just some little like teen. And there'd be a folder and it'd say PR... the letter 0 and N, it'd say prawn, and you'd go, what's this? And you would just be and you would just be watching like hardcore anal porn. It's like, what the fuck? But then also you'd be like, what the fuck is this? Quietly copying that folder over, you know what I mean? Like, dude, people, and also, this is how fucked gamers were. People weren't, if you're going to share files, you share like, you know, your gaming movies or demo, they just share the whole hard drive, including like their porn collection. I used to think that's a bit weird, mate. Now I know what you're into, like, but all the same, copy and paste, you know. Waste not one. No, I've got fucking 56K, oh man, I need this shit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because that was one of the few times where you would actually have like high internet speed, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You make the most out of it. You're downloading like, obviously in this state,
hypothetically in Minecraft. Yeah, of course, we never really did it. Yeah, exactly. Legally, I have to say it was just in the game Minecraft. And
one of the really messed up parts that I don't necessarily miss from the BYOCs, because obviously, like you would like you play your BYOC, or it's like end of day, right?
Yeah.
So you're free.
I know where you're going here. God, I know where you're going here. Come on.
No, but like you're walking around because obviously you're socializing.
I know where you're going. Come on.
And the amount of people...
There'd be people watching porn.
Porn.
Dude, that's the other thing. They're sat there. The worst, Moses, is the ones where you're out of sleep and bag, you can sort of see the hand underneath. And it's like, bro, do what I'm doing in my joke that I definitely didn't do. Just copy and paste it, watch it at home. No, they're just like so anti-social. They're like, right, well,
no impulse control.
Yeah, the games are over, boys, right? Oh, look, she's giving head. All right, like... And you are just walking past like, what the sad thing is, Moses, I have to say, I'm looking at the bigger picture. Maybe our parents did have a point, actually, to be fair. It was sort of like fucking, it wasn't, basically, here's the boomer reference. It was like that island in fucking Pinocchio where they're all like degenerates smoking cigars. Like, come on, kids, don't you want to play pool? And being naughty, what the fuck?
Dude, and we're presenting this as some nostalgic feeling
I know.
listening for 20 years.
And also, by the way, before you all think we only mean local lands, oh no, people were doing that at the CPL as well. Like, as in,
the World Championship.
For real, like, Heaton might be sat there, like, practicing his aim for the next, like, upper bracket final. And then, yeah, like, over, like, the PC's behind, the guy's just like, oh, yeah, baby, like, fuck, what?
No, like
what a world!
Real thing, like you know the whole like idea like that came with American Pie with the crusty tennis sock. Right?
Yes.
Lance would literally have like the crusty like the blanket, the land blanket. That
the blanket.
And it's so fucked up.
Listen, the term you know it as well as I do. The term is comrag. It's called. It's listen, not that popular a term nowadays. I know out there in the world, but that was what it was called back in the day. It was because that's the thing I have to say as well, Moses, is there's nothing about you Americans. They'd all be like, oh, the tissues and the Vaseline. It's like, who can afford tissues, mate? Give me that towel. Yeah, exactly. Like, tissues, that's expensive. Yeah. What are you doing? Fucking Kleenex or something? I've got this towel that's been washed for a week or whatever. Like,
us Europeans, we rough-housed it.
Oh my God.
Oh, by the way, the one thing I will say, Moses, that was also amazing, though, is first of all, the other reason why there was porn like this is there was no women. There was about, like, for every, like, 400 guys, there was one woman. And even then, it was just, like, she wasn't usually incredibly attractive, but she was just another nerd game or someone's girlfriend or something.
Yeah.
And then also, when you had that sort of a setup as well, it's like, the problem is, like, there was no kind of social... None of this modern stuff about like being polite to women. Like they had to just be one of the guys. That's the only way they could get by themselves. They couldn't come in and complain. They just had to go, I don't see that, or whatever, it's fine. It was wild back then, mate. It was fucking wild.
Dude, I saw it at the event this weekend in Chicago where like some players had like their girlfriends there and I was just like sat there and I was like, what are you guys bringing your girlfriend? This is no place for a girlfriend. Not just the least of what's she doing all day? She just sat there watching you play video games behind you. Yeah, there's nothing to do. Don't do it to the girlfriend. Yeah. Like don't do them like this. And then when you're playing, they got to go talk to all these other fucking weirdos that are walking around here. I mean, cool people because they're at a Counter-Strike event, but you know, weirdos at the same time. Like they're just abandoned into the wild of video games. Yeah, I do miss LANs. Those were good times. I just remember like those events were so crazy to go to because like it really was just like a test of like endurance. Like even not even like the CPLs, just like the small regional ones too. Even the one this weekend, like there would be delays. No event would ever finish before midnight. Yeah. I've played in grand finals at 4 a.m, and at that point you're drinking like your 8th Red Bull of the day, just trying to survive. Like you're exhausted. Oh, mate,
the worst obviously is if you go into like an OT game, dude. People just break. They're just like, oh, it's just over. Whatever, they win. You know, like you just fucking. It's just been too long. You want to sleep? Please, I just really want to sleep. Like I'm not trying to get in the Navy SEALs here, motherfucker. I'm trying to win a video game tournament. I know it's mental in it.
All for $400. That's your cut of the price.
Yeah, but you say that, Moses, when they handed you those crisp $400 bills.
Shit.
That may as well have been like the bar of gold for the Intel Grand Slam. Holy boys, all the Papa John's is on us tonight. Yeah, you'd be going crazy, wouldn't you?
It felt fucking good back in the day. It sure did.
Dude, my first LAN win ever. I remember like we spent the entire I had to travel like by plane, which in itself was like a massive investment, right? But obviously to transfer a PC by airplane needs like
you didn't put it in the hold, did you? Please tell me you didn't put it in the hold.
I did, but I also invested in like an actual fucking.
Oh, so it didn't break because by the way, I've also heard stories like that people went to American CPL from Europe and they're like just pack their PC in the hold and then they arrived and as you can imagine at that point you have a box of screws and broken components you don't have a PC. Like, remember, dude, we've all seen when we're on the plane the guy who puts the bags on. You know when he comes on, he's just like.
Yeets it.
That's like your PC. And by the way, spoiler, putting onto the box like fragile. Do not do. Well, everyone does that, don't they? Because it's like a fucking arms race. So he doesn't really go fragile. He just remember again. You've seen him. Spoiler: he makes minimum wage. He doesn't get. He has his headphones on.
Doesn't give a shit about the
Nas. He doesn't give a fuck, mate. He's just throwing it on, of course. I've even seen that happen before. I don't know if you've ever had this. It did tilt me. I had that nightmare one, where you see the guy driving out, you're just waiting in your seat, and then you see like your bag that he just totally manhandles, like, and you're like. I hope I didn't have anything in that. I'm trying to remember. Did I have like a fucking bottle or something? Like that's broken now, isn't it? Like, why do you have to say? Why did I have to see mine? Why did I have to notice which one was mine and see him pick it up? Why can't that just be a generic black bag? You know, like.
Michael and I carried ours on to the play.
Oh, that's the pro move.
But like then you have to open it up at security. You had to like look through all the compartments. It was like an extra 20-minute affair to get that bag rolling.
You'll remember this. That's why there was an event. I forget which one it was. It was a CSGO event in like 2015 or something, where something like that happened. Like some pro team came and they were like, "Oh, sorry, we've like lost all our gear because it was in the hold," and we were all like, "You fucking noob! Like what, dude? You guys are like 10 years out of date. You never take the mouse and the fucking keyboard in the hold. You always have that in your carry-on." It was some famous team, wasn't it?
Wasn't that Very Games?
It could have been. I know it was some like real proper pro team.
I want to say it was like Smiths and something like that.
Right.
That happened at like fucking EPL this year. Like people are still fucking doing it. Like I don't
Rookie mistake. Rookie mistake.
Exactly. But it's unforgivable now. We've had 20 years of experience in this regard. It's unforgivable.
Yes. By the way, vENdetta, one thing I want to ask you about like the Nordic lands as well is Richard told me as well. Like, here's the difference. At the American ones, you have to remember, this is another thing that was very weird for me as an adult. Because what's weird about the UK is we never had like a stigma about alcohol. I realise now what the rest of this sentence is going to sound ridiculous because we all just were drinking loads of it at 15 in like, you know, in a park with cider or having a party. Yeah, that actually sounds bad when I say it like that. I realise we didn't have a problem with alcohol, Moses. We were all drunk when we were 15 years old.
We were drunk for 6 years by then.
But remember, if you go to America, you have to be 21.
Yeah.
21. Not 18 even. Wasn't it actually 21 you had to be to drink alcohol?
Yeah, 21.
So at the time, like the joke was, it was like I arrived in America, like, you can't have a drink, sir. Like, oh, okay. And so obviously then it would just be all people with, you know, the fifth vodka in the hotel room. So even then it was sort of like you were out of sight. I've heard at the Nordic lands, they would just do stuff like they'd either have a bar sometimes at the venue and people just drinking beer the whole time, or they'd just get like a whole table, like one of those like CPL tables, and they just fill it with like 80 pints of beer or lager, and then everyone's just drinking that all night long, like the whole time. I've heard the Nordic lads were mad for that shit, mate.
Oh yeah, like especially the Danish ones. Like Danish ones are the prime ones.
Oh right,
because they had a lower drinking age as well.
Well, they are the best Counter-Strike country we have, so maybe they're onto something.
Might be something to it because I
think Config was born in the wrong time. You know, if he'd have been born in like 2005, he'd be the MVP and, you know, having fun. What can I say? Shout out Config.
It wasn't that common in Norway specifically, though. Probably because, again, we have strict like regulations for alcohol, etc.
Okay. And it's so fucking expensive.
Like, and it's so exactly.
Oh,
like, we already have a land budget of about $25, right? So you can't spend all that.
No beers in the bomb shelters.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, the worst ever as well was also when, like you say, in the days when you just don't have spare money, you just have the money you've saved. So then you'd have that thing where it's like, you know, you're not buying beers from the event because they cost money. So it's like right now we're just having to pass around a bottle of, what is it, peach schnapps or something. You just be like, drink, or some like, you know, some coconut rum or something. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, shut up and drink it. All right, bloody hell. It's just like, suffering.
The classic thing that would go around on at especially the Danish event was something called fisk. Basically fish, which is like this licorice.
Oh, isn't that disgusting? Isn't that the one that's like, isn't it like a salty licorice drink or something?
Yes, exactly. So you have that like...
What is wrong with you people?
Oh, dude, it's vile.
By the way, here's how I can tell you that's a bad idea. Because when I was in Finland, I once went to a club where one of the like novelties was you could get like licorice flavored vodka.
Yeah,
that sounded like a good idea, right? Until I was throwing up, and then it looked like, you know, in the X-Files where that black goo would like take over. Dude, I was throwing up, just black spew out.
Dude, it's alien blood.
And you're drunk, so you just be thinking like, what the fuck? Is that like my liver or something exploded? What's going on now? It was wild, mate. And also, you know what as well, Buzz? The other problem about being sick is obviously it comes to what you get all the sense through your nose and everything.
Yeah.
You don't want to have salty, sour licorice smell there. Like, it's even worse.
Burning out of your sinuses.
Oh, mate.
I don't know about you guys, but like for us, our cough medicine when we were kids in the Nordic, it tastes exactly like that. So
right.
we're kind of used to it.
Oh, that's the joke that you're used to it. That right? I see. Now it's alcoholic.
Whole new meaning to Grandpa's old cough medicine.
Exactly.
Whole new meaning.
Right.
Dude, I mean, look, as much as we painted such a beautiful picture of these old school lands, like when the games were done or you were eliminated, the tournament was over, it was probably like the most social experience anyone had at that point in time. Like there was something really cool because at the end of the event, you would just go fucking chill and randomly, like if you were part of the cool kids club who was like good at Counter-Strike, you'd be hanging out with all the legends from Europe and you'd be having a beer. It's where I had my first snooze ever in my life and it knocked me on my fucking ass. I thought my neck turned into rubber at that point in my life. But, you know, had my first drink at a CPL, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like it was like a social experience for gamers who don't normally have social experiences because that's the only environment that they ever really felt comfortable in was amongst other gamers. So there was that cool social element of it too. I remember, you know, one of the other foods we had at the CPLs, Duncan. Remember, Texas has the largest Hooters in the entire world. So a lot of people went to that Hooters.
And by the way, here's the other thing as well. Remember, that's another thing that for obvious reasons with social dynamics has sort of had to degrade over time, hasn't it? Back then, it was exactly the ridiculous dream you'd want of a Hooters, Moses. Like you go there and, oh yes, you are seeing some large mammaries flopping about in a shirt. You are just like, I'll have the wings, I guess. Like fucking hell, it was crazy back then. And I'll tell you what, those girls, listen, one, they knew what they were doing, but two, they were making so much in tips, it was mental. Because you can imagine people just fucking cashing out. Because that was like that was actually sort of like a novelty back then, wasn't it? Of that bar, yeah.
Anytime you went there with someone from CPL, it was actually like the scene from The Office. It was actually like that really cringe, exactly. Michael Scott office scene. You were just like, but like nobody even realized that was awkward. It was just ridiculous. But everyone fucking loved it. Everyone, that was like a yearly tradition.
What it will.
And we'll just let the silence speak everything for the great giant Hooters restaurant of Dallas, Texas.
You know, one thing I always thought was sad though, Moses, is that this is actually one thing a lot of people don't know about CS 1.6 is it wasn't until way later, almost like I'd say like maybe 4 or 5 years later, that there were like NA teams that would come to Europe. Because before it was like we all came to America and the sponsored teams. But unless you really were like maybe Team 3D or maybe like eventually like one other team, like I don't know, Zex or something. There's only 1 or 2 teams ever did the opposite, went to Europe and had like their own experience, like ESWC or whatever maybe. So I always felt like that was the sad thing. Unlike in CSGO, you didn't have like the full crossover. It was more like we all came to America, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be like super ignorant about it because I don't know how much money the European orgs had back then, but like, and I didn't even have orgs that were structured as a business. It was we're picking like a clan tag. I think 3D, which was born out of X3, was like the first actual organization that had sponsors and that had funding. United 5 that I played on was the second one because Craig from 3D Torbil helped us get those sponsors. And I think at that time, this was like 2004, I want to say. At that time, it was like they were giving us like $6,000 a year split into 2 payments, but we had to pay the money up front and then invoice for it later.
Right.
So I mean, we just in any way. But yeah, that was the big reason at the time was just like we didn't have that business side of things like set up in any meaningful way. And I don't know how much the orgs paid to get their teams to CPL. I don't know if it was 100% or just most of it or anything like that. But yeah, it just wasn't there. And also, I mean, in those early days too, I think there was really only one event that Americans looked at in Europe that was like, we want to go to it, and it was Jönköping. It was like the DreamHack Winter in Jönköping was like the one big event I feel like that Europe had that really attracted North American teams. Everything else was still in kind of its small, more regional phases, as far as I recall. But yeah, I mean, we just simply couldn't make the trip for a long time until ESWC started popping up and getting started, and then you could win. Like if you won the ESWC America, they would fly you out to Paris for it. But those were really the only opportunities that we kind of had.
I guess it kind of changed a little bit later on when you had CPL tours, right?
Yeah, when they started doing the world tour. Yeah, when they started doing the world tour of CPL, which was 2006, and they had like a stop in South America, a couple in Europe, I think, and then the main one was always in North America as like the actual championship for it.
Yeah. No, there weren't like a whole lot of big LAN events in that sense in EU that attracted. I'm thinking like 011. Like 011 was one of the bigger ones, and Rendezvous, etc. But it would always just attract like maybe a team from France, that kind of thing, and not necessarily get any sort of traction from outside of Europe because I guess it's just too expensive, right?
Yeah, and let's just be honest.
Yeah, go on.
I would say back then, like there's no way, and I don't think my parents ever would have let me travel internationally.
No way.
Like at that point, like as crazy as that might sound, like as a, I mean, dude, my first CPL, I had to use my brother's ID to get in. They ID'd us at the tournament check-in area.
Holy shit!
I tried to.
Were you so scared that you're not going to let it in and come all the way there?
Yeah, dude, I tried to buy a fake ID from Canada, like one of those websites that just popped up that was like, send $120 to this address and we'll send you back a fake ID. An obvious scam, but when you're 14 years old, 15 years old, and you're desperate to play, you do it, never got it back. So we went there and just risked it and said, my brother went and checked in, walked back out, gave me his ID. He'd already checked in, so they let him, and then I used his ID as well, and they let me in also. It wasn't any kind of ridiculous check, but some people got screwed by it. Remember Volcano? Volcano couldn't play in a CPL or two. The big controversy too is Element should have been denied a CPL, but because he was such a big personality in the first contract transfer, they let it slide for that event. But Fraud, I think, was turned down for his first CPL, couldn't play in it. Like, there were a lot of players who were like legends of the game now who couldn't play at the first event on their team because they weren't 16.
Yes. It's also why, actually, what was bizarre is obviously everyone was almost a kid back then, but it's why, if people don't know, also that like Potty was like super revered, because Potty was like one of the best players, and he was like, I'm going to say, like, I think he was like 7 or 10 years older. Dude, I think he was already like 25 or something at the time that this was going on. Like, he was like a full-grown man, but he was like a pro at the game, whereas everyone else, like you say, was just like the fucking ridiculous. Like, if you ever see the old school pictures of Heat, he does just look like he just come out of he could be the fan if you just didn't have the jersey on. We all just look like stupid, sweaty teenagers. Of course.
Yeah, for sure. That was crazy seeing that, how young people were back then. Too.
Oh, dude, and another thing is, because everyone was a nerd, I'm sure you must have had this in Norway as well, vENdetta, people would go to LANs, and it was just like some fucking cringe fest, like you'd imagine, like people just wearing like pajama trousers walking around, or like massive Bermuda shorts, and you're just like, bro, like there's no decorum here, we're trying to have a tournament, you know, like, it'd be ridiculous.
It's super weird because you'd expect people to understand that they're surrounded by people who can see them, but everyone would just act like they were still in their bedroom.
Yes.
With how they what they obviously like watch on their screens and what they were wearing, how they were acting. Like, if they were like a messy person at home, they would be the same kind of thing. Like, shit would just be flying everywhere. Like, it was messy. And if they didn't shower at home, they definitely didn't shower at LAN.
Also, Moses said it earlier as a joke, but obviously before World of Warcraft, the game was EverQuest. That was the one that popped off. We used to literally call it EverCrack, because if you think it's bad when people play a lot of CS, people would be an actual real good pro. By the way, if people don't know, literally, when we have that discussion about how good K-Sharp was, he actually should have been twice as good, but those games just drained his fucking energy. Like, he was just playing them all the time. And so what would happen is, at least he stayed pro. I knew people who were incredibly talented, that's why we say it's like crack. You know, the idea is, if you had a normal friend and he got a crack, you just find him like a year later in the fucking alley of some, like, what the hell, what are you doing under a bridge? That was the gaming equivalent was, they would just disappear and they just wouldn't be in the pro scene anymore. And you'd be, for real, you'd be like, where did he go? And as if they were like a widow, people would be like, yeah, EverQuest got him. You know, like, it was actually crazy. I've always joked, almost like real drugs. The reason I never tried EverQuest or World, I was just scared, like, fucking hell, I'm already bad enough with this shit. I'm not good at that. Like, if I could do it to them, I'll be fucking done. I'll be cooked.
Well, the joke in NA was like, it was like the 3 W's. It was weed, women, or World of Warcraft. Like, like one of those is going to get you. One of those is going to ruin careers. In World of Warcraft, way more than the other two in terms of careers that were ruined.
It's the most freely available, to be fair, out of the 3.
I mean, some combined all 3, which is obviously
exactly. R.I.P. to the ones that tried all 3 at the same time. Yeah, exactly. You're never getting out of this hole, mate. You're done. I know. Another thing as well I have to say is, because I'd never played those games, I remember like seeing like K-Sharp or Moto or something playing one of those like World of Warcraft at a tournament, and I'm not joking, Moses. I was stood behind him like, So when does something happen then? He'd just been walking for like 15 minutes. Like, oh, nothing. I'm just walking over here to get this thing and I'm going back. And I'm like, and you're really into this game then? He's like, oh, it's the best. Yeah, it's really sick. And I'm like, well, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to go on, Jack. What are you doing? We used to call it World of Walking. Like, what are you fucking doing? Like, there's nothing happening in the game.
I still think that exact thing about World of Warcraft. When I see people play it, I'm just like, this can't be fun. And I'm a Diablo player. Like, I know the experience. Like, but Diablo's like World of Warcraft light. Like, that shit happens quick. It's snappy. Get in, get out. You have a good time. Whatever. Actually, not so much anymore. But you used to be able to.
Yes.
Now, but like when I watch people play World, I'm just like, you guys are you're doing everything just so you can have like a dragon mount. Yeah. That's it. Okay, well, see you later.
That hits the spot for some people, you know. I mean, like one of the best players from Sweden at the time fell to World of Warcraft. Like you probably, I guess both of you might remember Calippo, right?
Oh, I remember him.
Gamers and you agree. He literally went from one WAG, right? Placed like top 4 at a couple of CPLs, etc. And then turned out.
Was he with eyeballers when they won?
No. Yeah, I'm pretty. No, not when they won. No. Not the one with
maybe later.
Hyper and those guys. Because that was like Uden. Yeah.
No, like he says, he was playing with like a Forest and them originally, and then he was playing with like Khan and DSN or something. Yeah.
He basically just like disappeared. Like he went from basically like winning WG and doing all kinds of great stuff to all of a sudden being like the top 2 rogue in the world and playing for like was it City or something? Whatever the most famous guild in the world was.
Oh,
and that's
right,
the last
fair
you saw him.
enough.
Yeah,
actually had a poker
that's,
in that game, right? Okay.
yeah, but that's the last you heard of him
Yeah,
in
good
CS,
for him,
because he
yeah.
just like ended up being just completely engorged by World of Warcraft. And you had a bunch of them, like Uzum as well from Catch Gamer, like similar story, like a bunch of players. But one thing I wanted to touch on as well, you mentioned CPL and the age limits, etc. Like they had a 16-year age limit even on the CPL tours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why you didn't see Real in like an actual good team, or like a team that would actually compete outside of the borders for that long. Even because he was still like the best player in Norway
like a
by quite some
prodigy,
margin.
yeah.
Yeah. Like everybody knew he was that good, even though 50% probably thought he was cheating.
Sure.
But he only was able to go to like the CPL UK event that they won, where they beat NIP, because he had just turned like either 15 or 16.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and that was the only reason. That was the first time you ever went to like a international LAN and just ended up dominating everyone.
By the
But
way,
it's weird, like how that restricts people's.
you know, that's
careers, 'cause he was
also
good
another
enough.
mad thing that it's just reminded me of. When they would have a tournament in a lot of countries, to be fair, I'm banging on the Dallas one. It was the same in every country, remember, because the event is just a small, locally organized event, even if it's got a pro tournament, it's never going to actually be like, right, you're in the UK, so you're in London in the centre. Well, of course you're not. You're going to be in like fucking Birmingham or some shit all like that, where like, you're going to arrive. And if you've never been to the UK, just like my experience of going to America, you're going to be like, is this it? Because remember, if you go to America, you think of New York. If you're from the UK, you know, like, fucking, it's going to be sick and all that. How you don't forget about it and all that fucking bullshit, right? And then you just go there and it's like, the fuck, like I said, there's no shops or anything. So the same thing, if people came to the UK, I used to feel so bad for the pro players because they'd come to some ratty little fucking Holiday Inn, like the cheapest possible one. I mean, the joke is they actually did do a little bit of this. I'll give a spoiler, a little industry secret here. They did a bit of this in CSGO because ESL UK was based out like Leicester or whatever. By the way, also perfect that they picked that because I don't blame you. It is written in a fucked up way, but all the Americans, oh, I'm here in Leicester. We're here in Leicester. We're just coming. I love that already. Love that because I will say it's felt fucked up. Like it doesn't. Like, we do say Leicester, which like I don't know. You get that out of that letters, mate. But it probably comes from Old English or something. But yeah, it's the vibe that you were going there, and you were just like, man, the UK is shit. And people would be like, well, to be fair, we're actually in the middle of nowhere, aren't we? Like, we're playing the LAN in an industrial warehouse. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we're not like downtown. We're not where all the clubs and all the Ritz are we? Like, give me a break. It was like that in every country, because that's why you're right on the Jönköping one. Dude, it's crazy that actually now obviously DreamHack's are not that big for esports, for CSGO at least, because even when you would go there, people don't get how scuffed that was. Yeah, it is cool that it was the biggest LAN and all that. It was in a tiny religious farming town where that's it. That's why they were having it there, because it's in a giant sort of like warehouse thing. Aside from that, the joke was like a famous detail about the majors when they were at fucking Jönköping is if you win the major, you better hope it was a quick 2-0. There is no after party. You've got like an hour left before everyone goes to bed at 1 a.m. or some shit like that. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, that's not Stockholm. Like, if I hear Sweden, Venda, if we go to Stockholm, there's clubs, there's fucking sick. Like, we were going literally on a bus to the countryside. I always used to think the worst must have been Korean StarCraft players, bro. Imagine flying from like fucking Korea and you go, oh, I'm going to, remember then it's going, I am going to Europe. They arrived, someone puts them on a bus at like Gothenburg Airport, like come in here. They just, remember,
45 minutes.
They go all the way there, then they just arrive in this place like, this is Europe? Like, it's like, yeah, good luck, enjoy. Like, and I'll say this because you've been to loads of events. I generally love Nordic kebab. It's actually quite a nice style of kebab.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I don't even know what they were selling at DreamHacks claiming it was kebab. What even is that? Like, bro, I don't know what that is. It's some sort of a meat. I couldn't tell you what type of meat. I couldn't tell you how it's cooked. Like,
might be pigeon. Who knows?
What even is that, bro?
Dude, I because it had such a nice place in Counter-Strike history, I always wanted to go to a DreamHack in Jönköping.
Sure.
And I went to my first one and I was just like, well, I've done it. I don't ever want to come back.
No, you don't need to.
I don't ever need to go back. It's it's an experience and it was worth it, but I don't need to go to 2.
I had the same thing with The Gathering. Because again,
Right.
like DreamHack, that was obviously the Norwegian DreamHack, and that's just a special aura and like history around it. And you knew like obviously massive amounts of both DreamHack and The Gathering are like social based or like for casuals. So they'll have their own sound systems. They'll have like their own kind of thing going on.
They'd always have like a section that's like blasting hardcore, hard house or some shit like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Chill out area or whatever.
Yeah, and every year you promise like, oh no, but there's going to be like a tournament section.
Yes.
There's going to be a tournament section. Don't worry about it. So you're not going to be like worried about the sound systems or anything like that. Only to show up, and obviously like The Gathering is the same kind of thing. It's in a city called Hamar, which where like the ice skating for the Olympics took place. So it's literally just like a massive like ice rink type of ordeal. Where
how many people go to the gathering though? Like what, 300 or 500? What would it be?
Well, how many?
Yeah, how many people go?
I think it's like 6,000 people.
What?
Holy shit!
Yeah. Like DreamHack, like 8K
moly.
people. Yeah. It's like the second biggest.
Oh, that, to be fair, that I have forgotten about that. You know, like you were saying, you're right, Moz. When you first go to the BYOC and CPL, it's impressive. It's a really big ballroom. But it's true, when you come into the main hall of DreamHack, and then you're like,
like what?
Oh my god, it's full of stars! Like it's like an infinity of gamers just stretching. It's like one of those like fucking when you open OBS and you make it like that infinity thing that goes into the background. It's like that. You could just see forever, just infinite people and gamers, and you're just like, what the fuck is this? Is this
and there's
Valhalla?
like a 24/7 EDM concert off to the hole to your left. The BYOC and tournament areas up to your right. Like there's another hole off to your straight ahead. Like it's a mind blowing thing to witness. But after like 2 days of it, you're like, can EDM,
it gets old real fast.
Please stop.
And also, dude, a lot of people don't know this. Whereas, like iSeries or whatever, like it wasn't a problem there where you sleep or all that shit. In theory, at DreamHack, they are supposed to, I think by law, they're not supposed to let you sleep at your PC. You know this, vENdetta. But what would happen is, like, there's like 10 security guards policing like 8,000 people. So, of course, there's people just sleeping under the desk. I mean, without going too crazy, there was people doing all sorts of things under the fucking desk at these stands. All I'll tell you, like, I imagine it was a formative experience for a lot of people. Like, fucking whiling, mate. Like, I've walked past a few Moses, like, what the fuck's going on there? Like, oh, I see. Oh, my mistake.
Right, well, see you later.
I see nothing. Walking
wonder what the shared folders are like at Jönköping.
Just a handful of exchanges.
Nice.
There you go. Okay.
No.
Sol, very classy. Well done.
No, but again, like the promises of every single year having like a own competitive area, and when you show up, all you see is like they literally just put up like guardrails, like how you basically like set up the queues outside. They moved those from the outside and just like cornered off a little area, and you still have like 25 rows who have built their own speaker systems that plays at like 120 decibels, just like a meter away from you.
By the way, I've just remembered this. It's so insane, but this is also what events were like. You know, the era where most of the pro events were finally not just at LANs, but they were at trade shows. And so you'd be in a booth, but then you have like a loud booth of music. You've got all people milling around anywhere. And like, I remember, I think it was the guy, Aphex Twin from the manager of Four Kings, the UK guy, Ben, whatever his name is, Ben Woodward, I think. Yeah, that's it. The guy who works for Code Red Esports now. And basically, he told me some mad story that like Mangia Capra was at some like LAN that might even have been like a CPL qualifier or some like final of a LAN. And because the people milling around the trade show don't know what esports is, like it's not even a thing back then, and they don't know that this is a tournament. Apparently, he was like playing the game like in the match, and the guy just tapped him on his shoulder like, "Can I have a go?" Like, I'm a bit busy right now. Like, what are you talking about? Because remember, like, here's the other thing: they wouldn't make the area separate. It'd be like one little rope, wouldn't it? Like right around you, like you could reach over.
Yeah.
So imagine being that, like you're in a clutch, just like, what the fuck? Can I have a go? That looks good. Like I'm fucking playing the game. Like this is like the final right now, man. What are you doing?
Oh, it's so tilting.
It's good, isn't it? It's good.
That would be so tilting.
Dude, there's so many like funny stories. I remember playing, I think it was DSRAC 2 or 3. So this is like rather modern for being olden days. It was like 2008-ish or something. Okay. And it's still BYOC setting it, etc. But they obviously like have limited space, so you have all the power cords under the tables.
Oh Lord, I can see where this is going.
The old Russian timeout I see coming.
I can see where this is going.
But the best part is like you don't necessarily have like Team A playing versus Team B like facing each other. Like eventually, once you get further into the tournament, you're gonna have one team on this row and then the other team all the way at the other spot, right? But there would still be games going on the row in front of you. So they could be mid-round, you could be warming up, etc. And maybe something's wrong. So like you start plugging out stuff. And like in the middle of a compo match, like we had this experience where we were playing a match versus I think SK, like the German version in Source. And
definitely not cheaters, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah. And like we're playing and all of a sudden like all of them disconnect from the server. Because someone on a different row, like opposite to them, had accidentally stepped on like one of those like power switches. That was meant to be like a.
This is giving me like PTSD even the story. Like, dude, imagine being in the middle of a round and that's like you know that because remember in old Counter Strike, it didn't just like click. It would be like sort of it just say like CL flush entity or something. You'd be like, oh, what's going on?
You just
some like lag on the server or something. Yeah, you have no idea what's going on, would you?
Yeah, we don't have match medic as well.
Oh, dude, I've just remembered something we all forget as well. You know, in the modern day with like SSD, modern computers, dude, I mean, nowadays PCs don't even crash. You can have them on for like fucking 4 months. Back then, routinely during matches, PCs just blue screen to death in the middle of a round. And then it used to take like 3 minutes to boot your PC up. And by the way, they weren't pausing the game. The game went on. So if you're just missing rounds, it's like, get back in, I'm trying to, it's still loaded up on the BIOS screen. Like, that's a fucking, you can imagine the stress that you feel. Dude, you feel like you're trying to like defuse a nuclear bomb or something, don't you? It's insane.
Yeah, it's those. I mean, we talked about the Bears earlier. He had it happen to him like 3 times. Blue screen during clutches, overtime game, CPL elimination game.
The Bears had it happen in a CPL match. United 5, not the one Moses was on, was winning against the Titans, the Danish team. I'm obviously was too young, but you know,
Eugene.
Against them, he was in a 1v1, and his PC just turned itself off. Like, it goes off. And it's like, oh, that's that round done. Yeah, cool. We're probably going to lose this game. Brilliant. Like, and remember, like I said, there's no social media. You can't complain to anyone. Like, because as Moses says, they have to get this event done. There's not time to go, like all that shit we were doing with like fucking Lethal Gamers, and all the fucking, whatever that event was where like Hiko and Fallen were arguing about a restart. There's no restarts. You just play the game, mate. Like, there's no time to do the game again. As you say, we're going to be having the finals at 3 a.m. Like, let's just keep rolling. Like, if you lose, tough shit. Like, that's just life, I'm afraid.
Yeah. The good old days, we call those. The good old days.
Yes. Oh, an angle I thought we could talk about, because it actually ties into the earlier stuff as well. This must have happened everywhere in the world. Is we're joking about, like, you know, and if you're really good online, like a pro, people think you cheat, and then at the LAN, if you do badly. Oh, no, there were some people stupid enough who did cheat, who would go to these LANs, and I can tell you right now, I don't care if that PC cost you €1,000. This was like some medieval peasant mob fucking justice. Like, people, if they found out you were cheating, they would actually get together. People might even, like, hold you back like some fucking insane shit and just smash your PC to oblivion in front of you as well. Like, there was some wild shit going on back then, bro. Or you might get your head punched in. All sorts of crazy shit could happen.
Yeah, dude, it happened to Funk. Like, there's like a famous game that we always reference in like 1.6 where, like, dude, this was actually from start to finish, it's a wild story. Like, his team was playing like a late stage CPL game. One of his teammates had said like, hey, I'm going upstairs. I need to take a nap before the next game. Come get me at like this time, like an hour before the match starts. And obviously did not go and get him. He was there as the 6th man, did not go and wake him up. So he had to hop in because none of his teammates knew where he was. So he stepped into the position. Played in the game, went -1 in 11 on a game on Aztec. They lost the match because he was just obviously absolutely fucking useless, actually negative impact. And then when he left the BYOC area to get some food, he came back and they torn apart his PC. Someone had torn apart his PC, like smashed up, like ripped out his video card, ripped out his hard drive. Pieces of his computer were just laying out all over his BYOC station. It was just like, it was done. It was like, not only did you used to cheat, but then you just went and scummed our team out of this game that you performed horribly in. He got wrecked for that. But it took him a long time to live that down too. He still played afterwards. Yeah.
No, the joke is back then, I mean, it happened to everyone at some point. He used, because of his score, like you say, like a -1 to something, that even used to be like an infamous scoreline. Like, if if you ever start a game 0-7, you're like, shit, I better get a kill somehow because I don't want to get funked or something. Like, exactly. Yeah. That was the thing. Yeah, for real.
As annoying as we all like casters now are like, ooh, he's going double, he's gone James Bond. As many times you've heard that, you get like a -1 score in pistol round. Someone's like, ooh, I wonder if he'll pull the funk like 12 rounds from now. That was the thing.
Because you must know that vENdetta. That was another classic thing, is if anyone ever went to LAN, and it was an early LAN, they ever did that, like went 0 kills. Dude, you might even be a top player. Like, that could set your rep back like 3 years or something, man. You might just get kicked out of the team.
Oh, yeah. Like I guess the bar for I guess failure in that sense, or like how much people actually allow you to have like off games, etc., was so small back then. It's insane. But
it's because we only had like 5 LAN events a year.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
like,
you know, you had 2 CPLs and like maybe 2 to 3 regional events a year, and outside of that, like if you couldn't perform at those select 5 events, like what the fuck? Like we don't have time for you.
By the way, though, one thing I did always think was dope in America, though, was like when the scenes that were regional had like enough LANs. Like I know your area, like Midwest, there was it, and obviously like SoCal LANs,
Texas,
New York,
East Coast.
One of the things that was cool was when you would just get like actually a decent prize pool. Like maybe it's like 1,000 for first place. So you would just have like ringer teams of like fucking like this guy's in like Cal Invite. He's like used to be, and then you would all be there trying to play normally, and these guys would just rock up like fucking pool hustlers and just take all the money and just roll out of there, and then you have to just win like 4th place or something, even though you've been practicing for 2 months.
We used to sign up under aliases for those events.
Oh, right.
The prize pool was made from sign up fees. So if people saw us sign up, they wouldn't go to the tournament.
That makes sense.
So we'd go to the organizer and be like, "Hey, we're coming, but we're just going to sign up with fake names." We would go as like James Bond, Chuck Norris, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like it was obvious that we were signing up under aliases, obviously. But yeah, you'd have to like rock up that way, otherwise people just wouldn't show up, and the prize pool would be stuck super low. So I mean, that's just what we did. But it was cool back then. Like regional LANs were so important, especially in the States. I know they would be in Europe as well, but in the States, it was like, man, as in the early days of CSGO, before we had this international team everywhere you look, you could talk about French Counter-Strike and Danish Counter-Strike versus like, Eastern European Counter-Strike. Everyone had like a different style. And in the States, there was a difference between East Coast Counter-Strike and West Coast Counter-Strike and Texas Counter-Strike. So when the regional LANs were all there, it was cool seeing like the regional teams kind of develop in that way, because it was so different in how they played. So you could play a North American team at a CPL, and a West Coast team would be a completely different field than an East Coast team. And that was just part of the charm of the structure of how our scene was set up that we no longer have, because we're missing these regional events, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's even an angle I'd forgotten as well. People forget when they talked about the early scene. Like in Europe, obviously, we would be like, in the NA scene, it's like, bro, if he's from the Midwest, he doesn't fucking know the guys who come from NorCal. Like, he's never met them. And also, they've never played any tournaments together. And like, they have and they all talk shit to each other because of the regions.
Yeah, it was like the hip hop beef. It's like we had East Coast versus West Coast all the fucking time, and they hated each other. I mean, not quite as bad as hip hop, but it was like, dude, because the West Coast guys would just show up and they just played skilled Counter-Strike. Like they were fucking morons. They didn't play any tactical.
Oh, they were like FPL players, yeah.
They would show up like fucking stoned, and they just run out mid on train with the deagle and hit 3 headshots and like rounds over. And the NA teams or the East Coast teams were trying to be more like European, like play a slower style, play a little bit more tactical and strategical. But like if someone's running out mid, like fucking high on drugs, just fucking banging you out, what are you gonna fucking do? What are you gonna do?
Indeed. Oh, mate, yeah, that is actually mad now you say it.
I was thinking about one thing as well. Like you mentioned the fact that somebody who would cheat online went to LAN and obviously get dumpstered, that kind of a thing, and how that would ruin their reputation. I'm sure you guys know some instances, but you don't necessarily have to name and shame. But the amount of people who would cheat online but actually be good at LAN as well.
Mate, I know some pros who just told me secretly, like, like in an online qualifier, what am I going to do? Lose the qualifier? But they were actual sick LAN players. And I was like, bro, are you really? Like, you're right. So you can actually do this without cheats? Like, what?
Yeah. And like, I'm not sure if this is like a widespread thing in the US, but at least in Scandinavia, it was not uncommon for people to prac with OpenGL.
Oh, it's wallhack. That's a famous wallhack for people who don't know. I mean, the other classic one, like the less, not as bad, but still bad, is just the famous smoke bug where you just don't have any smoke particles. So you're sitting there with an AWP in a smoke, like,
oh yeah, teams in NA used to.
And then you're like, I just got really good prediction. Yeah, I can always guess when. Some bullshit like that.
We had teams all the time that would practice with 32-bit smokes where they're on your screen, and then they would change the smoke sprite files in their folder in Counter-Strike where the smoke wouldn't show up for matches. And that's just how you played.
Oh, and by the way, spoiler, during these LANs as well, I forgot this aspect. Remember, this is the early 2000s. There is nobody policing any aspect of this LAN. Spoiler, you would think you were in like a fucking sailor's bar, the language that was flying around these rooms. I mean, this is why the fact that we're nerds meant like there weren't that many fistfights. Because you can imagine what people are calling each other when they lose a round or something. Like, it was wild, bro. Like, I'm just glad essentially no one was recording back then. That's all.
You say that, but I wish there was like a YouTube channel with private videos or something that like a certain amount of people had like invited access to, because like some of the charm it
was funny
is like.
By the way, some people were amazing at shit talking too. Yeah, some people were like mad skills in it. Yeah.
My joke is I'm just hoping there's no one out there with like invite scrim IRC logs like just saved on a PC from like 20 years ago.
Please.
Spoiler alert, I did find someone who has those logs.
Oh, Lord. Okay. That person doesn't know it, Moses, but they could actually hold us for a king's ransom.
Yeah, I know. I was just like, don't tell anyone you have this. This is fine.
Because the sad thing as well is the reason why it would look so bad now is because obviously it seems so extreme, but back then that was like punctuation right in those words. Everyone was doing it. Because the joke, like you're saying, especially if it's like a private scrim channel, it's like, mate, everyone, even the most mild-mannered person is like, hey, you, like, it was wild. It was wild.
It got out of control real quick. Yeah, shit was crazy. But I mean, I remember like one CPL, like we won a round in like a game, and my brother stood up and said, "Yeah, let's fucking go. Nice fucking job. Good fucking clutch." And like the CPL staff actually walked over to him and was like, "This is the first year that we actually have cameras recording inside the tournament area, so please tone it down." I was like, just for fuck, right? Like that's weird. That's a weird thing to get upset about.
You know what? I won't mention the name of the player because you never know how much is always known publicly and whether people know. But you know how I'm talking about, Moses. It's a certain American player who's a bit hefty in like the later days after you. And I remember this guy, there was that story where it was like the Torble one where he was at some LAN and that guy just stands up. Like we're talking like, it's like some event at like New York, bro, with like all media watching and like a big qualifier. And then he's just standing up winning clutches vENdetta like, you boop, 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 boop. And then Torble's just coming off like, what are we doing here? Like you can't just be saying all that stuff. Oh, sorry. Yeah, shit. Sorry, my bad. Like these guys were just going off. They were saying the craziest shit. But like I say, this is when in theory we should be years past that. They were still doing that though.
Oh yeah. It's just been hard coded into them after like 6+ years of doing that nonstop.
And
like
also,
game, right?
yeah, the thing people don't get is people actually weren't trying to be heinously offensive because the internet had no filters back then. It was the Wild West. If you go online, everyone's telling you to kill yourself like one round into the game when you die or whatever. Like it was just essentially you actually sort of got used to the signal noise of just constant abuse. Like in fact, you'll know this vENdetta in the UK scene. We were infamous for the fucking typing shit. Like people would be playing the game and typing like you fucking I will fuck your mum at the like kill yourself like that'd just be like a scrim. Like oh well, good game. Guys, like
they would do that official gifts as well. Like we would play versus like the Rattlesnakes teams, MX, like all of these guys, etc. And they would just like if you win the pistol because you did something, let's say unorthodox or cool or something, they would literally just like the entire like vocabulary came out like, in an instant, and they would just continue talking. But the fact that they were just so good that they could still do that, and still beat you, But it became like. They were playing two games at once. Like they wanted to win like the verbal battle, but they also wanted to win the game as well, and that's how they kind of got everything into that track. Because if you started shit talking back, like the game was over.
Yeah,
like nobody could compete with UK players.
It was also just like it was the time before like the internet was like widespread. Like it was still kind of weird at that time in the world to like be on the internet this much to begin with. Like you know, it was just like the mainstream had not really caught on, like maybe using email and some websites here or there, but not really understanding that being on the internet was like an actual social structure in and of itself. It wasn't set up the same way it is now. So yeah, everything was just like just done with no moderation, no filter, nobody around to see what you were doing, nobody around to like, it was everyone just kind of operated in what like just no impulse control. It's whatever came into your head just went into the internet.
Oh, dude, I also remember in the really early days when you would be playing before you were in like a pro team, you're playing some amateur team. And then it's back when the family PC's just in someone's, like obviously I always had mine in my room because I'm a nerd, but like there'd be some loser playing on the family PC in the family room. And then he'd just be going like leaving the scrim halfway through, like, sorry, got to go to bed now. Mum says like, what the fuck? We're on 4v5 now. What? He's just logging off like, what the fuck? Or the same thing, like, whoa, guys, keep it down, like they can hear me on the mic. Like, well, tell your mum she's a boop. Like, wait, listen, we weren't all socially attuned back then. Now, of course, great, but back then.
I remember, gaming without a headset is how I started.
Oh, speakers. Jeez,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's a risky
playing a risky game. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Jesus.
And also, what must your parents have thought of the sound just on machine gun fire coming from your I know terrorists win. And then they're like, you're right up there, Harvard. Yep, just playing a game again. Like fucking.
Don't worry about it.
Are you playing that game again where you make terrorism win and shoot all the UK police? Yeah. Well, good job, son. Like I'm all like,
they've added voice lines to Civilization. Don't worry about it.
I'll never, like the amount of times my parents asked me to like pause the game or something back in the day. It's just like
you mean when you played the game and like your mum comes in with the basket of laundry, like you pause that, will you? I've just got to put all this stuff away. I'm like, it's a fucking league match. I can't. And everyone's like, shut up, get in the game. Like I'm just trying. Shut up, get up. Like. Because by the way, now people do that as a meme. That was the thing back then. They didn't know, like it wasn't like Mario. You can't just pause it. It wasn't
Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like honestly, it got me to do more house chores as a result. Because whenever my mom showed me anything at the door as I'm playing, I was just like, just put it by the door. I'll do it later. So like whatever it would have been that she normally would have done, I had to do it. So
yes, did you actually do it later?
Yeah, but a lot later.
Nah,
obviously, like I'd be playing the game, and then I'd be
you know the
continuing to
moves
play.
back then, Moses. Like that's when you do the stuff like to clean your room. You just move aside the area under your bed, kick everything under there, then shove a thing back. So there you go, it's clean, right? Back in the game. Like, oh, it's ridiculous. They're like, where's these trousers? Don't know, they've just got lost somewhere. Don't worry about it. Like,
I don't know. I put them away.
mate, I'll tell you. I'll end with a story that actually isn't about gaming, but it's more about like the culture of what it was like we're talking about here. Because this is some nightmare fuel when someone told me. Because when someone told me, it made me realize, shit, that must have happened to so many people. So you know, like in the modern day, there's been this weird thing the last few years where like Pokemon cards became a thing again for like as like speculatory item, you know, and the original ones of like the first era, like the boosters are worth like insane money. Like if you have like the Charizard foil, it used to be like $100, but now it's probably like 10k or something. Right? I think it's something mental now. And I've heard stories of when people discover this now, like, wait a minute, my old cards would be worth all that. They go back home, they go up in the attic, where are they? And then they go to the mum, and you already know where this is going. And she goes, oh, those old cards, I gave those to charity years ago. And you're just like, that was like 50k worth of cards in there. Like, and she's like, nah, you could just buy more. You can just buy more poos to go. And you're just like, well, to me, that's like the gamer version of like, you had like Bitcoin on like hard storage and you threw the fucking USB cable. You know, what are you going to do? Like, I can't even imagine how you just keep it together. Then like you must be like the movie Falling Down. You just lose your mind. Like, oh, well, I've lost it. I can't live anymore. I should have 50k. I have nothing. Brilliant. So you've thrown it out. So, and even worse, some fucker in a charity shop's going, it's nothing good in it. Oh, Charizard for $1. Because remember, the woman in the charity shop doesn't know it's worth anything either. He's just like, some fucker out there's just got all your cards for nothing. Brilliant.
That actually brings back painful memories because I know that exact thing has happened.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
The only thing that has salvaged it a little bit is the fact that I was able to find my like half of my basketball card collection.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, which has like some pretty OG cards. I haven't graded them yet though, but they might be worth some.
Yeah, if they're that old, yeah. I may not have the most supporters in the world, but the ones I do have are straight fire. And they include Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Frisky, Ahmed Hadjou, Torin, Tobias Bernasconi, Animosity, Tosh, Jensen Goh, and you know it always is a special thanks going out to Jerky's Minion. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my show? Do you want to see things I say on my Discord, little piece of straight fire I drop in the Patreon-only channels, stories I tell people and the other ones? Do you want to ask a question in my monthly AMA? Do you want teasers, find out who the next guests are for Reflections interviews? Maybe you want to be one of those people who takes part in the long-form discussion with me where we talk about whatever's on your mind in esports. Well, if any of those or more sound interesting, why not support me, put your money where your mouth is, and join the Scrolluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.